welcome everyone to the Awful Takes podcast. I guess technically we're on episode 18. Wallied today is unfortunately busy doing adult stuff. He said I don't have time for that rinky-dink small-time podcast anymore. He's working on a movie. So we're very proud of him right now. I just thought, since we're still in the month of October, I wanted to get in another episode just so that way I could keep filling content, basically. So I asked two people today to come and join me, and they don't like me, but here they are. We have Nate. He is back after his silent voice review. Nate, how are you doing today?
I'm doing all right. It's good to be back here. I'm glad to return, Got some things to say.
And we have Dylan back with us after her review. Yeah, I'm excited both of them are here. Dylan, how are you doing?
I'm doing great. I'm really excited. Nate's a big fat liar.
Not slander. Already slander off the rip.
I want to point something out. He did say after he watched the first Guardians of the Galaxy 3 movie that it was garbage. Not the movie, but the soundtrack. He's a liar. He's a liar.
Nate, is that an actual quote?
Not a real quote. I would love to God. I'd love to contest the fact that quote is inaccurate.
What did you say then?
I said it could have had a better soundtrack. My whole thing is that if they were going by decades, right? If like the first movie was kind of like 70s music and 2 was like really good 80s music, kind of like some folk rock thrown in there. Like, don't get me wrong, I think there were some really solid picks in Volume 3, like Beastie Boys, that was great. Like that Space Hog song, like fit perfectly. But I don't know, man. I love like you guys were talking about last time. I love Florence and the Machine, and I love that Dog Days Are Over. But yeah, that song came out in 2006. Okay, that's not in the 90s. All right, that was my whole thing. But I digress. I guess I'm never gonna live that down. So
I respect your opinion, but you're wrong. You're wrong.
Then you don't.
Nabaahi,
you're lying.
Nabaahi, what do you do?
I don't know. I feel like, again, for me, the molds definitely broke into when he gets the Zune.
That's true.
That was just my whole opinion, was like, okay, now that he has the Zune, I think they're just going to open the floodgate to just music in general. Yeah, that was my whole take on it, because obviously the Zune was very like 2000s era, so I don't know. That was just my point of view, but I did like the music overall.
That's fair.
We are here today to talk about a movie that I don't know. I feel like it gets a little heated with this movie sometimes, rightfully so. It's a reboot of an existing franchise that we already know. But before we get into that, there is some movie news that I would like to discuss today, especially with you two, actually. Christopher Nolan has greenlit his new movie, and it is coming out in 2026. So we're already like less than 2 years away, because it's going to come out July. Apparently Matt Damon is in talks to star in it. I'm pretty sure is the leading role. Are you guys excited? Dylan, I know you're a big Christopher Nolan fan.
I'm very hyped. I also read that he, what's it called? Kept declining the Warner Bros.
Oh, yeah, I read that too.
I'm super hyped, especially with Matt Damon. I love Matt Damon and like everything. So
yeah.
I'm really excited.
For those of you who don't know, what Dylan's mentioning is Warner Brothers used to be his main distributor with all of his movies. However, during the pandemic, we've mentioned it before, Warner Brothers came out with a mandate that they were going to do day-and-day releases with movies in theaters, and they would drop them on streaming the exact same day. And Christopher Nolan famously was not a fan of that. He's very much a theater person. He always fights for his movies to be put in theaters and IMAX and all that stuff, because to him, that's the pinnacle of watching movies. So him and Warner Brothers ended up splitting up, which was kind of crazy considering their pretty much 20-year relationship. And Christopher Nolan went over to Paramount, and he's still with Paramount, I guess, which is kind of crazy. Nate, are you excited? Christopher Nolan's new movie?
I don't know. I guess I am excited. I mean, I love Christopher Nolan. He does some fantastic work. I mean, he's one of the greatest, directors of our time, I feel like is safe to say. But part of me is also a little bit skeptical. Tenet was Tenet was not his best in my opinion.
That makes sense.
But Oppenheimer, man.
Yeah, Oppenheimer. God, don't get me wrong,
Oppenheimer was
Oppenheimer was
crazy.
awesome. I love 3-hour runtimes. That's that's my favorite. I love.
I like
all
3
that.
hours of my 24-hour day.
Dude, yeah, it's gone,
by
bro.
a movie.
Watching, Oppie get the Sloppenheimer. I don't want to. I don't want to see that, bro. It's crazy. But yeah, man, I'm excited. He's a great director. I will give an awful take though. This is my first awful take of the cast. I think I'm not really a huge fan of Matt Damon, honestly.
Wow.
Yeah,
Dude, Good Will
I know.
Hunting? Are you joking?
I know, but just
shit.
I don't know. I feel like he does have a really good range, but I don't know. I don't think he'd be- I don't want.
No, hang on. Hang on. If you're gonna make a really big stupid statement.
I didn't even get to finish.
What movies don't you like him in? What don't you like him in?
I don't know. I think it's a testament that I haven't even seen most of them because I just feel like he's not a great star. He's such a great supporting role in all the stuff that he's
Okay.
played that I've seen. I don't know if he, especially in like such a hold on. Well, it's such a grand production like Christopher Nolan's known to put. I don't know. I just feel like there are so many better stars that could have been picked out.
Wow.
I'm speechless, actually. Nabaahi, before I
Told you I had
I
to.
start going off, what is your thought?
I'm a fan of Matt Damon. Obviously, growing up, I watched. My dad was just the biggest fan of the Bourne movies, so that was like my first introduction to him. And the physicality that guy would put into those roles was amazing. I kind of see what Nate's saying. Maybe he doesn't have as much range as I think a lot of actors do, but he still brings it to the table most of the time, besides that stupid downsizing movie or whatever that was, where they like shrink down or something.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Honey, I Shrunk Matt Damon.
Or We Bought a Zoo or something.
yeah, dude.
Oh, yeah, that was
I'm
stupid
looking
as
at
fuck.
because I'm looking at these movies and I mean, come on, Elysium. Like
Yeah.
He's
really,
all
that's
talking about lasagna.
advanced
He's a
work.
fucking-
Spirit the horse. Like I don't know. I
Dude,
mean,
okay,
But when he brings it though, like he
brings
brings it. Like
Yeah.
like Dylan was
fair.
saying, Good Will Hunting is.
Dude,
But I don't know. He
Oh
gets
my
put in
gosh.
everything.
and he was one of the writers for that movie.
Yeah, he's
Which
great.
shows his range, all right?
The
Not only that,
Martian.
but like The Martian and like Interstellar and shit. Like, come on, dude.
And Oppenheimer. I really
exactly,
liked him in
he did
Oppenheimer.
really good. That movie won awards.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Dude. He's phenomenal. He's phenomenal.
Yeah, if you're gonna sit here and say that he was better at acting than Robert Downey Jr. in that movie,
I'm not saying that. I'm not saying that.
Then why
okay?
wouldn't?
But
you
I'm
pick
saying
RDJ then?
he doesn't. Okay, first of all, in Oppenheimer, he doesn't have a huge ass role like Robert Downey Jr. does.
It's a pretty big role. It's
Not
like his whole
necessarily.
bank
He's not in
role
it as
the
much as Robert
military.
Downey Jr. and Cillian Murphy are.
But I'm saying he's pivotal to the plot.
That's like me like comparing Josh Peck to fucking some other random fucker to the movie.
I'm gonna throw a big one.
Josh Peck was in there.
There's a movie. It's I honestly think it's my favorite war movie. Saving Private Ryan.
Oh my
Yeah,
god,
that's true.
There's this scene towards the end there when he's like talking about his family and his brothers and everything, and apparently he improvised that whole scene.
So cool, dude.
And he just nails the authenticity of that, and it really is shocking that was like him when he was younger, you know. But I really like
Matt Damon, man.
Yeah.
He did a good
I'm not
job.
gonna say he's my favorite actor, but he's a great actor. You can't discount.
I'm not
that.
saying he's a bad actor. I just don't like him as much as I would have rather seen like a different star for Chris.
So who would you? Okay, since we don't know what it's about, it's like they're talking about this like big mystery movie. Who do you think, without us knowing what it's about, would be good for that role besides Robert Downey Jr. because he's one of the greatest actors in the world right now.
That's fair. Plus, he has a lot of stuff he's already signed on to do. I
Yeah.
mean, they talked about doing
Avengers.
So like,
Yeah.
what would you? I guess who would you prefer?
That's so hard. I feel like if you, I don't know we don't know the story.
So
or
that's
anything
why
like
I'm
that.
saying I don't think it's fair to discount him instantly if we don't even know what it's about yet.
I will say,
True.
if I were to pick anyone like Dylan's saying, they've only paired up once, and I feel like they did a really good job. Christopher Nolan and Hugh Jackman. I would like to see
that
him
would
come
be
back in a
amazing
Nolan
too.
movie.
I think he's in a.
And he's also really big right now.
yeah, I was
Yeah.
gonna say he's in a very big resurgence of his career
Yeah.
too, especially with Wolverine and everything like that. So.
I see what Nate's saying. I kind of want to see Matt Damon kind of surprise me at this point because I will say, over the past, besides Oppenheimer, I feel like he hasn't actually like totally wowed me as much as I would like him to. But I know he can. Is
that
what
makes
I'm saying.
sense. I just don't think it's fair because we don't know what it's about yet.
Yeah.
But speaking of Wolverine, I just recently rewatched X-Men Origins, and oh my gosh, oh my gosh, it did not hold up from when I was 8.
Not good at all.
Oh my lord! So at one point when he's like, "Come get me," I was like, "I'm gonna turn this off."
My favorite thing is when who's it, Agent Zero has like that. He pulls out a gun and shoots Logan's like cigar out of his mouth.
Smoking cheap cigars.
So stupid.
Busts out the barn on a motorcycle.
Stupid.
Hey, everyone says in Nope that Jordan Peele did the Kira slide, the bike. Hugh Jackman did it with his claws. But one thing I want to throw at you guys with Nolan is one thing I've noticed is he's kind of been doing like 2 different types of movies, pretty much like your biographical, real story kind of movies, and then his more out there kind of ideas.
Yeah.
What would you want to see in this next movie? Would you want to see something more like Interstellar, Inception, or something like Dunkirk and Oppenheimer that's kind of based in reality and a real story?
So, personally, I'll start. I feel like, obviously, Nolan is a great director.
Yeah.
But he does his research with every single movie, even if it's a high concept. Like, he goes into it so it can be realistic and that you know what it could be about. Like, for instance, Interstellar. All right, the movie's confusing as fuck, but when you start getting into like theorems and all that, and like understanding like all that stuff, it starts to make sense.
Yep.
You know, when it comes to like his biographies and stuff, dude. Like, same thing. He does his research, and it's really great. I think because of Oppenheimer, I would like to see probably another biography.
Wow. Okay.
I think he does a really
Interesting.
good job at painting like the inner workings of these people that he's like making these documentary about. I mean, you see it in Oppenheimer, like obviously what Oppenheimer like sees and like what haunts him, and he does a very good job of like showing that. So yeah, I do think it would be really cool to see another like biographical film.
Wow.
But I don't know. I mean,
Is it because Tenet kind of like soured you a little bit?
See, that's my whole thing. Is I'm saying like
I've never seen it.
I would love to see him do something kind of a little bit more whimsical like Tenet. I think it was a cool concept.
Yeah.
But I think that I think he would need to find that balance like he did with Interstellar, where it's obviously fantastical. I mean, it's space, black holes, everything like that. But there's also that very base level of realness.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
Yeah,
like that even like someone that's not knowledgeable about, all the science in the film can understand like, oh, okay, like this is why this looks like this, and
the Pearl theory.
Yeah, they even explain it
does a whole
in the
thing.
movie. Yeah, it does a really good job. So I don't know. I think it's kind of up in the air. It would be really cool to see another like biopic. I don't know who he would kind of focus on. I feel like we've talked a lot about big historical figures, and Oppenheimer obviously did like numbers in the box office. I mean, it was
Barbenheimer.
Barbenheimer, gotta love
That's
it, dude.
crazy.
It was a success, but I don't know. I guess part of me would like to see a little bit of a shift from that and see that fantastic side again, and hopefully it's done a little better than Tenet a little bit. Like not to sit here and like.
That's
crap on
funny.
Tenet,
It's like
but-
I'm kind of in the opposite way. Like I love Oppenheimer and I love Dunkirk and everything, but for me, my favorite Nolan movies probably is like Inception, Interstellar, The Dark Knight, The Prestige.
Yeah.
I like it when he goes for those big ideas. And obviously Tenet, like I'll give him credit, like it was ambitious and everything.
Yeah.
But like Nate, the whole last third of that movie, I didn't know what was going on.
Yeah, and I understand like Inception, where you're supposed to be like, oh, like what?
Yeah.
But Tenet, I was just watching it. I was like, what? Like, I don't know. Maybe that's just I don't know nothing. Maybe I don't know. I don't know.
But he does have those kind of like I don't know, like you said, like he bases it in reality and he kind of finds a good way of like explaining it, like obviously with dreams, space travel, time and stuff like that. So I don't know. I would like to see him take another swing at that. However, he needs to learn how to find that fine line of explaining it to your audience well enough that they understand.
Yeah.
Because that was just the biggest fault of Tenet, was just like, they had those scenes where they would explain like, oh, here's a bullet and it's going in reverse. Time is inverted. And then pretty soon they're dropping crazy phrase like, oh, this is a temporal pincer. And what happens there is time's moving backwards and forwards at the same time.
I was like, what?
And like, it's cool, but I was just like, I still don't know what's going on.
Yeah.
And then they're like, when time's inverted, the air, you can't breathe it. Like, it's toxic to you because it's getting like, and I was just like, okay, this is going way too fast. And then before you know it, you're in the last half,
Yeah,
the last half,
act of
and
the
it's
film,
like,
and you're like, what?
I have no idea what's going on.
Exactly. And if I'm going to a movie theater to watch this, like I understand if you want to do rewatchings and kind of pick apart movies, and that's great. But if I'm just a normal moviegoer and I go to see this new Christopher Nolan film and I don't even understand the second half after I leave, I'm not going to go watch it again in theaters. You know what I mean? Like I don't know. I think that was just a detriment to the whole story.
No,
you know
it
what I
really
mean? Like
was.
it doesn't.
You got to see Tenet, Dylan. I'm surprised you haven't seen it.
Yeah, I haven't. I haven't
Wow.
heard good things enough for me to want to
Yeah.
watch it.
I mean, you've seen pretty much most of Christopher Nolan's movies, right?
I think so. I can never watch Inception again.
What?
Hang on. No. Not because it was bad. It was like a one and done. The first time I watched it, I think I was like 15. And I was like, I have to kill myself now. I have to wake up.
I gotta wake up from the dream. I'm dreaming right now.
So, yeah, just out of principle, I can't watch it anymore.
Dang.
It was phenomenal. It was really good.
It's a great movie.
I know it is. It's a great... I'm not saying it's not. It's great. I loved it. I just... 15-year-old brain could not comprehend what was happening. But it was so good. It was really good.
Well,
It's up there.
I don't know.
You didn't even answer your own question. Would you prefer to see like a fantastical or like a
I would say
biographical?
more like a fantastical.
He did.
idea.
That's what he said.
Yeah.
Oh.
I just, to me, again, I just like it when Nolan has those big concepts and he goes
Yeah.
for it.
Yeah.
Because to me, that's like, I'm not saying Oppenheimer isn't like a risk per se. Same with Dunkirk, but there's just something about creating something original and doing your best to convey that. I feel like that's a way bigger challenge than taking.
So you're saying it could
something-
be like a safety net for like
not. I don't want to like say that, but like figure Oppenheimer, like that's one of like the most controversial figures in like human history. So already there's a lot of draw when you hear, oh, okay, it's about how the nuclear bomb was created and things like that. Like, same thing, I guess, with Dunkirk. Obviously, there was one of the big wars and things of, World War II. So I don't know. I just feel like when it's different, like when he announces like, oh, I have a new movie coming out. It's called Interstellar. It's about space travel. It's like, holy shit, that sounds really cool.
Yeah.
Or I'm working on a movie called Inception. It's about dreams and things like that. It's just like, oh, okay, wow, that sounds ambitious.
They're definitely more like gripping concepts in those fantastical ones.
Yeah.
Like, because it's not to like downplay like the effort that's put into his films, because obviously, like, holy crap, like, there's obviously so much that goes in, but it's I feel like it's definitely easier to follow and dramatize real life events in his way that he does than it is like for him to like be that ambitious and like create this new concept to play with, or like play with an existing concept that we kind of have an idea about but haven't really like thought to delve into like that, like
So
space
that's-
travel or
that's cool.
like
I respect that.
Yeah.
Actually. I think I just like history a lot.
yeah.
And
That
I
makes
really
sense, too.
really liked Oppenheimer because it was pretty accurate.
I liked it too.
And I
thought it was great.
I like all things like war based.
Yeah.
So getting to see that in Dunkirk was really cool. So I want something kind of not necessarily similar, but something history based.
Yeah.
Because that's cool. I love the higher concepts. I love Interstellar and like the theories it plays into, because those are really high concepts that are kind of hard to understand, but at the same time, like you said in that movie, he kind of explains it. You
Yeah.
start seeing it in a physical form.
Yeah. I would love to see a mesh of the two, honestly.
That would be
Like,
kind
could
of
you
that'd be
imagine like
sweet.
some kind of like,
Something Einstein
like a
based.
period piece? Yeah, like a period piece, but really delves into like whatever concept he's decided to tackle,
That'd
Yeah.
be really
That'd
cool.
be really cool, I think.
I would like to see him. I don't know. Step out of his box maybe a little bit more. One thing that I've always would want to see more from him, or more like kind of horror elements. I feel like he touches on it in like Batman Begins and stuff. Like a lot of scenes in that movie are really like kind of like freaky.
It's like a
especially with
scarecrow. Yeah.
And I feel like he could do that like really well. Also maybe like more of like a thriller or something would be really cool.
I get what you're saying. That would be pretty sweet.
Yeah.
I don't see Matt Damon playing in a
thriller. I honestly, I'm kind of hoping there's not like a big action kind of like focus on this film, especially like because I don't do Tenet. Like, I guess trying to go back to Tenet, but like, come on, man, a bullet going back.
For me with Christopher Nolan, sometimes he really nails action and sometimes he doesn't.
Yeah.
Like obviously my biggest critique of any of the Dark Knight movies is the fighting. I feel like he didn't do as well as he could have, especially in Dark Knight Rises.
Okay. I respect that, actually.
However, his action scene in Inception is one of the greatest action scenes I've ever seen, with the revolving hallway, like spinning and everything, and it's messing with gravity and stuff. Like, that was so cool.
He's got to make his movie like Megalopolis.
Oh my God.
I'm joking.
But yeah, I don't know. I guess we'll probably be finding more about it in the next couple months.
That's true.
Probably get a title.
Fair enough. I mean, let's be real here. We're all gonna go see it.
Yeah,
we're all gonna go see it. So
everyone's gonna see it.
Exactly.
Okay, we are gonna jump into it. The film that's filling the spot of Shaun of the Dead, which we will get to next week.
It's a great movie too.
That's also phenomenal.
I know. I apologize. That was Wallied's recommendation. So I figured, well, let's just throw one in here. And what better film to talk about than Halloween?
Yeah.
There's a lot of movies. There's a lot of movies called Halloween. You have the original 1970s Halloween by John Carpenter.
God,
you have the Rob Zombie remake in 2000s.
Horrid.
Also called Halloween. And they were now doing a reboot again for like the third time, and they decided, let's call it Halloween.
Here's an idea.
Here's a good idea. Third time's the charm. So yes,
get this, Halloween.
Yeah, we're talking about Halloween 2018, David Gordon Green's movie, which serves as a follow-up to the original. Okay, I guess I'll briefly get into the kind of Halloween franchise. So you had Halloween come out in the 70s, big success. Everyone fell in love with it. So they followed up with a sequel. John Carpenter did not want to come back and direct it. Like, he's very famously been quoted as saying, like, he didn't really feel like they needed to. He liked the kind of one-off story.
Smart.
Yeah, makes sense.
Yeah,
the original.
However, the producers saw the success. Let's give it another swing.
Money grubbing.
Yep. So they basically got John Carpenter to come back only as a writer this time. So he very definitively came in, wrote the movie, and had a very finite end to Michael Myers.
Yeah.
Don't want to spoil Halloween 2 if you haven't seen it, but pretty much the story comes to an end.
Yeah.
Then Halloween 3 came out. And they were trying to treat it as like an anthology series now. So
it was originally supposed to be kind of like the I don't know if anyone's seen the Friday the 13th TV show, where it was kind of like
cool.
Yeah, they had a TV show that was it was more based off of the superstition around the date, as opposed to, you know, Jason and all that.
Yeah,
I didn't know that.
Yeah, it's
That's
more
cool.
like akin to like Twilight Zone. It was kind of what they were doing. They were trying to go for this anthology of like scary stories that happened during Halloween, as opposed to it just being about Michael Myers. And,
What? I didn't know that. That's pretty sweet.
So that's why the third one has nothing to do with Michael Myers. Like, he's not even canon in that movie. He's a TV.
Yeah.
He's a movie in that movie.
So yeah, season of Halloween 3 came out. It's called Season of the Witch. Like Nate says, everyone was pissed off. They're like, "Where's Michael Myers? Where's Laurie Strode?" So that movie kind of bombed. Then Halloween 4 came out, and they brought back Michael Myers.
Return of Michael Myers.
And it was okay. Like, I guess I like Halloween 4 a little bit. And then 5 and 6 followed it, and basically they started explaining too much of Michael Myers.
Yeah, stuff that no one really wanted the explanation.
It just got into a weird area.
Yeah.
And then that stuff fell through. So now they're like, well, let's do another reboot. And then Halloween H2O came out. Now H2O is like Halloween 2018. Sorry for the crash course, by the way. H2O is a sequel to Halloween 1 and 2. It ignores the rest of them, starting with fresh slate. And it was kind of a success.
Yeah.
Then they followed it up with Halloween Resurrection, and that movie is one of the worst movies ever made.
LL Cool J.
LL Cool J, Busta Rhymes. I swear, like, to quote Busta Rhymes in this movie, he says, trick or treat, motherfucker. And does like a flying karate kick towards Michael Myers, and it is the dumbest thing I've ever seen.
Oh man!
And basically that killed the franchise.
Yeah.
It was done after that. It was dead, and then they left it. And then Rob Zombie came along, did 2 Halloween movies that are considered very out there and super weird. I've seen both of them, and I'm not the biggest fan. So Halloween was dead, pretty much dormant for over 10 years. Then talk started going around of pretty much a new Halloween movie that would bring back Jamie Lee Curtis and ignore everything that came before it besides their first one.
Yeah.
Now, we were in the day and age. This came out 2018. We were well into the reboot era, I would like to call it, where pretty much everything that you had ever seen is now getting brought back with a new lens.
And they're still not done.
And they're still not done. It's still happening to this day. Just because if you have an existing franchise that has a built-in audience, you don't need to run the risk of losing your money by doing something new.
Yeah.
I think sometimes it can work. Sometimes it's not that great.
Yeah.
And a lot of the times it's just, okay, this is just a miss.
Yeah.
I feel like personally, I'm not a fan of reboots.
Yeah.
Okay, has there been anyone that you've actually liked at all? Or like a sequel reimagining?
Honestly, yeah.
Okay.
Actually, the Star Trek movies.
Oh yeah,
Those
I like
ones,
those too.
except for the last one.
Oh, Beyond.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Those first 2 were
I really liked
phenomenal.
them.
Like genuinely, visually, it still holds up to this day. And like that, what came out in like 2011,
late 2000s. And the sequel came out like 2011. Yeah.
Yeah. It, dude. Yeah, phenomenal. I love those ones. I think that's like one of the only reboots I can think of that genuinely like did really good.
Are you a big fan of like reboots, Nate?
Not usually.
Not
I
usually.
feel like I do really enjoy this one. I actually, even when it came out, I was very excited to see it. But I don't know. I feel like especially horror movies, I've noticed like very like storied franchises.
Yeah.
You know, Nightmare on Elm Street, Friday the 13th, Texas Chainsaw Massacre has had like 17.
Oh, yeah, they
reboots.
have.
Like God, I feel like they get the brunt of it for sure. Like
Yeah.
and most of them, yeah, they're not
Too great.
they're not great.
You know what? I actually didn't dislike the newer It movies.
Oh,
I
okay.
did
I like
enjoy
those
those
too.
ones. Yeah.
Because it actually was obviously in the 90s like a mini series.
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't dislike them. I just rewatched both of them yesterday, and they still hold up for me.
Yeah.
There's
I
like
like
some
'em.
CGI parts that I'm like, this is stupid.
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
But even in the theater, I think they definitely did a good
oh
job.
yeah, they did.
But I don't know. I feel like when I hear reboot, it's really just that thought of, okay, it's just people monetizing their IP,
Yeah.
like trying to bring
Goonies
in new
never
audiences.
die.
Yeah, stuff, right, exactly. Stuff
Can't
that
believe that.
already has been made and, you know, isn't a risk. So
Yeah.
it just kind of takes it away from me. But I do think there are some times that they do it really right. I think especially with this one, they do a lot of justice to the first one for
Yeah.
sure. But then you have like Power Rangers, which is like the worst thing ever made. Like, yeah. So I don't know. I think it's very hit or miss, and there's a
Yeah.
lot more misses for sure.
So when this movie came out, I'll be straight up. When it was announced, I was not excited about it. Now I just want to get into my whole discovering of the Halloween franchise. I was with my dad. We, us as a family, not to have like a little sob story, but basically we got evicted from our house and we were staying at a hotel. And for some reason, Halloween H2O was on. And me and my dad were just sitting there. We were the rest of my family went to go get dinner. They were bringing us back food, and I don't know why we really got into it. And it was just like the last half of H2O. Obviously, I'd heard the name Michael Myers and I knew who he was, but I never saw a Halloween movie. And we watched it, and then that's kind of my whole exposure to Halloween was that H2O movie. So granted, it's not my favorite, but I do kind of enjoy it.
Yeah.
And then shortly after that, my dad came back to visit and he brought back the first Halloween, the John Carpenter one. And I remember watching it and I was probably too young at the time. I was like a teenager and I was just like, hey, it's dated, it's cheap, it's old. And the more I started to think about it, I was like, actually, there's a lot I really like about this movie. And after that, slowly I started watching the rest of them. So when this sequel was first announced, honestly, a majority of the Halloween franchise to me is a miss. You know,
Yeah.
I can throw out 4, 5, and 6. I can throw out Resurrection. I can throw out the Rob Zombies.
No Paul Rudd. no Paul Rudd.
So when this was announced, I'm just like, I don't know. I don't know how I feel about it.
Yeah.
Wasn't too excited. Then the first trailer came out. That's one of my favorite trailers. I don't know why. It just sold me. All the shots, everything in it. I was like, actually, I'm kind of excited for this movie now.
Stay, yeah.
And I remember going to the theater to watch it, and I just left going, that was good. That really served the feeling that I wanted to feel, I guess. However, looking at the online space at the time, it wasn't super divisive, but there were people who didn't like it, and there were people who liked it. However, I rewatched this movie a lot, and there's stuff I still like. There's I would say the hits that it hits, it works really well.
Yeah.
There's some stuff obviously I think could be improved. It's not perfect. However, I feel like the things it brought to the table that it succeeded on was worth it.
Yeah.
I was like, this was worth making.
Yeah.
Dylan, what's your whole exposure with the Halloween franchise? This is a big IP, so I mean, let's hear it.
So the first time I had heard about Halloween actually was around Halloween.
Oh,
I
cool.
was I think I was like 7, and I watched the first one, like the very first one, and I loved it. I fell in love with it like instantly. I thought it was super cool. I thought he was like genuinely terrifying because you look at him and the next minute he's gone and then he's in front of you and you're dead. I thought that was sick. And then I had watched the second one, and past that, I haven't seen a single one besides those two.
And I'm missing
besides,
For real,
which is fine. I think it's good that I haven't because I think it would sway my opinion on the 2018 one.
That makes sense.
I think that it. I do like the 2018 one. Okay, and for some parts.
Yeah.
But overall, I have a lot of takes with it that I feel like it kind of did a disservice to the movie itself, not necessarily to John Carpenter's. Okay, I think that's great. I don't think it reflects bad on that at all. But there are certain parts that I'm like, come on, you're joking. Like, this is so stupid. And then what follows after that, I was like, you ruined the whole fucking movie for me. Congratulations, you guys fucked this whole thing. You can suck one, actually. So that's my exposure.
All right, we'll get into that. Nate, what was the first time you watched Halloween? Where'd you hear about it? How did it all happen?
Well, I've always been a very huge fan of those 80s slasher flicks. I mean, Friday the 13th is one of my favorite franchises. I've loved that forever. So like, Halloween, Friday the 13th, Nightmare on Elm Street, Hellraiser, like all these like classic titles, you know. So I've always had a very deep love for those slasher flicks. And then, around that time when it was coming out, because there had been a couple of reboots before. I mean, 2009 they did a Friday the 13th, which I enjoyed that one. It was pretty good. Definitely a lot more like intense than any of like the campy 80s ones.
Yeah.
But, obviously it's for the times, but I digress. I'd seen the first one many times, and then the second one also. I actually really love those two together because they came up with the concept for Halloween. And they had like a abysmal budget, like $300,000 to make a feature film at the time was not a lot. And then obviously it was a big success. A lot of people watched it, and they were like, okay, we got to do a sequel. Obviously John Carpenter was not super hyped to do that. But he did go on saying like he tried to do it in a sense where these two films were two parts of the same story.
Yeah.
I mean, it obviously takes place like right after the first one and it continues it. So in my opinion, for the whole franchise, like the first two will always be the Halloween story to me.
That makes sense.
The rest of them I feel like are kind of like, they're just so corny. Like they're literally like, you look at any of those franchises, like Friday, like you're gonna have some really bad ones. Like not all of them are good. I'm not gonna
to be expected.
I'm not gonna sit here and say all the Friday films are great. Like, God, the one where he goes to hell. Like, no, we're not even talking about that. So bad. But yeah, I love the franchise. So seeing that it was gonna get a reboot and
Which
like
we saw together.
Yeah, hearing about it even before it came out, I was pretty excited. But yeah, you're right. Like after that first trailer, like I was sold. I was so hooked, and I really enjoyed the way he looked. Because obviously, like that's my biggest pet peeve about the franchise is, why do you change the mask at all? Like, what's the point? The whole point is that it's scary, right? And that was like the shape face, but why would you change it? And like some of them are
Which one is it? 6, where he has like straightened hair?
Dude, and like, like H2O.
What?
H2O.
Yeah, I'm not lying. In one scene, like it's random. It's like a CGI mask.
Yeah, because they forgot. Oh man, the production of those movies is such a wild roller coaster. Because yeah, I don't know what they were thinking. Like there's one where he has like a pink mask on accident. I don't know how you accidentally put on a pink mask for
Pink Panther nod.
Yeah, but even H2O, there's a lot of eyeliner. But yeah, that was my biggest thing. But I did love how he looked. I did.
Looks great.
Yeah, I mean, visually, this movie does a really good job of like showing the age.
Yeah.
And like the time skip of what happened, because obviously the second one isn't in this continuity anymore. It's just that first one. So it's been 40 years.
Exactly.
Like, exactly 40 years, like to the day. So I think they did a really good job of like, and even if you like look a little bit into the behind the scenes, they were talking about like when they were recreating the mask, like they made sure everything was so perfect, like to the point where people would be like, dude, can you move his like this little tuft of hair that's like on the mask kind of out of place? He's like, no, that's in the film, like that's in the original. Like it's gonna stay like that. So
That's cool.
yeah, so I think they did a really good like service and homaging like the first one and kind of doing that age gap. But
So what we'll do is we'll kind of break it down. I wrote down notes pretty much as I was watching it, things I liked, things I didn't like. So just starting out, I felt like the intro for me was really good. Okay. Let me just explain. All right. So right away, you're just kind of thrown into it. Already, you kind of know the stakes of what's going on in the scene. You have these journalists, pretty much. We'll just call them podcasters because that's what they are.
Nabaahis.
Yep, that's pretty much what I'm trying to build myself to. So you have a building of tension pretty much all the way to the opening credits. The cinematography for me is really good.
Yeah.
However, it's not too flashy, which is why I think I like it.
Yeah.
I don't think it's really trying to be anything like, super standout-ish.
Yeah.
Yet it feels like I'm watching a Halloween movie.
yeah, it does a good job of painting this like sanatorium to be so like very sinister.
Yeah.
Like,
And
very unnerving of like hospital feeling, like.
And the cool thing that I liked is it wasn't like too dark, They really
like,
played
it all takes
into
place
a
in
lot of the
daytime.
brights
Yeah.
and that checkered flooring of the outside.
Yeah.
The way everything was lensed and framed, I thought was really great. However, the only thing in that intro that I felt like maybe they could have done maybe a little better is kind of explain who these podcasters are. Because if you're starting with them, I felt like I needed more behind what they were doing,
Yeah.
But I think very early on, especially in that beginning, it's meant to show that these people aren't really likable. They really are people who are in over their head. They think they're worth more than they are. And
Yeah,
they
they're
kinda,
fucking stupid.
Yeah, they kind of walk around and have that opinion. However, the tension in the scene is great. Having Michael just faced away, not doing anything, and being brought the mask was so awesome.
Yeah.
And that kind of like awakens this thing in him. He's pretty much been kind of comatose
Dormant.
for 40 years.
Yeah.
And now that that mask is there, it reignites something in him pretty much. And you have all the surrounding inmates making weird noises. The dog starts barking. Just amazing. And then boom, jumps right into the credits. Music starts playing. I was
God,
like,
The credits
theme-
was phenomenal.
yeah,
So good.
And then it ends with him. He just wants Michael to say something. To me, I don't know. It was a great intro.
Yeah.
Dylan, I guess, what was something that wasn't really working for you?
Okay, so I agree pretty much with what you're saying. All right. I think, at least when I first saw it, that everybody's screaming when they saw the mask. You know, everybody's like getting
Yeah.
uneasy. Even that dog starts kind of whimpering before he starts flipping his shit.
Yeah.
Was like chilling. You know what I mean? Because you're just like, that doesn't sit right with you. I guess I have a hard time with movies, horror movies, thriller movies, slasher movies, where the people are stupid. Okay. I feel like logically,
Same.
why the fuck are you teasing this dude? Like, why,
That makes
like,
sense.
for what he's capable of and what we have seen, all right? I just feel like it's obviously a setup for their deaths, all right? Which is cool and all, but you don't need to go to that extent of where you're having them like all scream at this fucking mask and like we know it's his awakening and stuff. I just felt like it was a little pretentious.
That's fair.
The one thing I liked that some movies don't really get into, and especially with like the reboots and everything, is the detachment the newer generation feels from this event. Almost similar to like Akira, how the main cast from that movie wasn't around when shit kind of went down. So already you're past the generation of what witnessed it happening.
Yeah.
So already you have a detachment from it. And I think that's who these podcasters are kind of meant to be, is that they're removed from it, so they don't really have the same kind of respect.
Yeah.
They,
But
they
That's
weren't there.
But I think that's a story plot that gets brought up a lot in the film too.
Yeah.
Especially with Laurie's daughter, who is coming up a
Karen.
little bit later. Yeah.
yeah.
I don't agree. I don't. I feel like because they are podcasters or whatever, like they have this talk show and they're like award winning. They do their research. They know what happened. They know
makes
all
sense.
these things that go into it. And in the movie, they're all suggesting that Laurie Strode and Michael Myers sit down and have a conversation. That's so fucking dumb, dude. That's so stupid. I felt like they just like, I didn't really need that setup. It'd be cool if they like, it was a cool scene, but I felt like it was just pretentious and them having to pull out the mask. Like, also, where the fuck did they get the mask? I know they got
that's
it
my
from like,
only critique of that scene. Is
Yeah.
like they show up this mask. He's like, yeah, I have something that I got from a friend in the DA's office. I'm like, who the fuck aren't you
I
British?
know.
I'm like, aren't you from the UK? How do you know some dude
And
in
the one thing that
Illinois?
I didn't
It's
get
like-
is it's just in his fucking knapsack.
Yeah, exactly,
Like,
dude.
It's not even
His
in
little
an
book
evidence
bag.
bag.
He just stuffed it in there. I'm like,
yeah,
Just right next to his laptop.
he's all putting his fingerprints on it and shit. He's
I
all
know.
gripping it
I
by
was
its
like,
hair.
come
I
on.
just felt like it was overdone. I felt like
That makes sense.
I agree with the cinematography. All right, like the setting is setting up for Halloween. It's
Yeah.
October. It's getting burr and all that, but I felt like the hospital itself was also really pretentious. The checkered patterns was stupid as fuck.
No,
Not only that, but all the inmates chained to the floor. I was like, okay, yeah, they need to take precaution, but this is so stupid. They have like a whole fucking like ring around like Michael Myers of where you can't step,
Yeah.
and this idiot is walking up with his mask, arm over the fucking like barrier, and he's just like, say something. Shut up, dude. You're gonna die and you deserve it.
No. I disagree. The way I saw that scene especially was, obviously you have all these other patients in that yard.
Yeah.
But I think it visually does a very good job of showing how isolated Michael is from the other patients. You can see it, like they're all kind of grouped up on that left side. Like obviously they have their own little squares that with the yellow line that you're not supposed to cross. But you can see Michael's on the far right, just completely solitary.
Yeah.
Like, and I think that's a good like visual cued. Like he's dangerous. Like everyone knows he's dangerous. Like he's
Well, I also just look at it like, if he is obviously this really big threat, all right, somebody of like superhuman strength, all right, why are they allowing visitors? Why are they allowing these people to even get within a proximity of him because of what he can do? You know what
I think there's a reason though. I think so the Dr. Loomis of this movie, his name is Dr. Sartain,
Yeah.
who throughout the film you see has a very unhealthy attachment, like obsession with Michael Myers.
And Laurie Strode.
yeah, and their connection and everything. But since he's his primary like doctor that like oversees
Yeah.
his development at the treatment center, I think that kind of obviously like doesn't tell it, and I think that does kind of detriment the story a little bit. But I think that the only reason they were allowed in there was because Sartain has this like need to see Michael react to something.
That makes sense.
Which,
like, I didn't think about
again,
that.
makes me have a question for later on in the movie. Like shortly after the bus scene.
Okay.
But when we get into that, I'll ask the question because it made me think about that.
Yeah.
So that's my take on the first scene.
That makes sense. Definitely leaving the intro. I was just like, I'm not a fan of these two.
Yeah.
Like they're gonna deserve whatever happens to
Yeah.
them, which they're
Which I'm like,
crazy. They're desperate.
like I get it, but I feel like maybe they could have had a, they could have went about it in a different way to make me at least care about them.
Yeah, like to where they could have some redeemable qualities.
Just something.
Yeah.
However, the intro happens, the credits. To me, the Halloween score is just
Oh, it's
beautiful.
iconic. The
dude.
return of John Carpenter in the score
So
is the
good.
best thing ever. Him and Cody Carpenter, his son, like
That's
such
so
a phenomenal
good.
job on the music in this movie. Like,
Yeah.
like so many. Obviously, it's very reminiscent of the first one, which is very nostalgic, and I love that. But God, they do their own spins on these like tracks, these old tracks that are just so like fitting in this film, I think.
And I liked the reverse shot of the pumpkin. Like,
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, dude, that
resurrection.
parallel.
That
They
was
draw
cool.
a lot of. Obviously, they draw a lot of parallels to that first film. But
Yeah.
even like comparing it to that first one, where the pumpkin's just there and it's kind of showing, and obviously you see that little like silhouette that kind of looks like Michael Myers with the knife like in the nose.
Yeah.
And then obviously a lot of people miss that in that first one, and it's kind of like a little trivia, but I feel like they did a really good job like showing like, okay, it's been 40 years. Obviously the pumpkin's gonna be gross, and then the resurrection of
Yeah,
it.
it was cool.
Michael Myers, like a retelling.
It was pretty sweet.
Yeah,
I
and-
really liked that. That
Yeah.
part, I was just like, all right, I want to watch this.
Yeah.
Like, this is dope.
So then past the credits and everything, the podcasters pretty much show up to Laurie Strode's house. Already you are seeing the trauma of everything that happened.
Yeah.
She lives behind a giant fence. She owns a bunch of weapons and things.
There's a lot of
now.
mannequins in her yard.
Yeah. So seeing that obviously feels a little reminiscent of Ripley, kind of.
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned that. I wrote that down in my notes too. That I feel like Jamie Lee Curtis is so iconic as Laurie Strode, in such a like independent and very strong-willed like woman that plays the character, is just like Sigourney Weaver as
Yeah.
Ripley in Alien. And I
I agree with that.
Yeah, and I agree, and I love that in a lot of John Carpenter horror movies, the main character is very knowledgeable.
Yeah.
And like does smart stuff like to prevent obviously, and I have tropes of like, oh, I'm running and I fall and now I'm gonna step, like obviously like yeah, or like but like even in The Thing, which is the best horror movie ever made, like there's a lot of like very smart decisions from these people that I love to see.
So seeing that kind of setup with Laurie was great. Obviously, it hits on a lot of stuff visually. However, when the interaction starts to happen, the exposition wasn't as hard hitting as I felt like it could have been.
Yeah.
Like they allude to stuff in Laurie's past. Obviously, we haven't seen her in 40 years, which is how the sequel's treating it. But they just briefly just touch on stuff like she lost custody of her daughter. She's haunted by her past. They don't really do anything to kind of show it,
Yeah.
And that was the one thing. Like watching that intro again, I was like, this could hit a little harder. You have such a great. I'm just gonna say it right now. Jamie Lee Curtis does a really good job in this movie.
Yeah.
However, there's more you can do with it.
I would have loved to see like intercut scenes of like the
Something.
original, like
Yeah.
like flashbacks,
Which they
maybe, like-
do a little bit within the movie,
the
but
end.
not
Yeah.
as much as they should have. I agree with you.
Yeah.
I also feel like the questions that these people were asking, the like podcast people were asking, like they were stupid. Like if
And
they had
just
done their
cross
like
the line.
yeah, and they like were
definitely
pushing.
trying to-
They weren't trying to get an answer out of her. They already knew the answers.
Yeah.
They're going
She
to talk.
says
They
that.
like. I feel like they set up this scene for them to go and talk to her to introduce Laurie Strode back to it. And I feel like that also wasn't necessary considering the fact that these people already know the answers. They just set up this scene for that one little moment, but we already know Laurie Strode's coming back. You know what I mean? I feel like that part was just a little weird. I liked when she said, "You don't believe in the boogeyman?" And I was
Yeah,
just like,
I like that.
"Hey, boogeyman, that's cool."
I liked it. The only other thing that I was to me just a big miss in that intro why did you not show Laurie the mask? That would have been so great to just have them be like,
Yeah, like she like freaks out or something.
yeah, have her
Put her in
reaction.
a panic attack.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Like you show Michael's side of it, him being shown the mask. Now show Laurie. You know,
Yeah.
she has
Like just pull out one of her dead friends. They're all looking at this.
They're all, remember this?
Like I don't know, just something like there was a way to get more emotion out of it. And I just
agree.
felt like it was a very one note kind of scene.
Yeah. She
and-
does. I mean, later in the movie, she obviously paints like a good traumatized state. Like,
Oh
very
yeah,
well.
like
But I would have
during the bus scene.
Yeah, but I would have loved, to see her like reaction to the mask or like some kind
I
of
didn't
like,
think about that. That would have been cool.
yeah, like some kind of visual cue to just draw back on to show like this is the effect it's had on her. This is what's happened since the time. And
Exactly.
obviously,
I think during the scene, it seems like she kind of has it all together. You know what I mean? That she's mentally there. She's like,
Exactly.
she's not scared. You know what I mean? So I agree. I feel like if they would have put her into a kind of panic and not just ask questions that they already know the answers to, that she's just going to give the same answers, it would have been better if she like they put her in fear. You know what
And
I mean?
I'll get into it a little later, but I feel like there's some stuff that kind of contrasts with that.
Yeah.
Like you said, like seeing her, it feels like she's very, I'm past this. However, later on,
You
there's
learn,
parts where it's like, okay, maybe it's not as quite as it looks, you know?
Yeah.
And
Okay.
I felt like they just should have chosen something and just kind of stuck with it.
yeah.
Okay.
However, the biggest takeaway again with the intro is these podcast guys freaking suck. I wrote down with how long they've been planning the interview. How did they think insulting Laurie would work?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm
You're
like,
just gonna drop.
they're
You lost
from
your
you reaching
daughter?
the
Yeah,
divorce
well,
husband.
first obviously they can tell she doesn't want to talk to him. They're like, "Here's $3,000," and she's like, "Okay," and then comes in and they're like, "So yeah, how did it feel to have your daughter ripped away from you? What was that like?" And
How
you're
does
like,
it
talk
feel
about-
to fail as a mom?
yeah, and you're like,
They asked like one question about Michael.
I
And they
know.
started
They
diving
didn't
into her personal life and
Yeah,
like
they didn't even ask
belittling
anything
her.
about,
You're like,
like-
hey, you're a bad mom. You're a bad
dude,
person.
literally.
So, anyways, past that, we get introductions to Laurie's, family. She has a daughter, Karen, and she has her daughter, Allison. So already you're showing like this is many generations past what we had seen as Laurie as a teenager. I really liked it. However, I will say one of my biggest critiques of this movie, the teenager stuff just doesn't work for
Not
me
at
No?
all. Not
Like,
one bit.
Not for you guys, really.
The only thing that I like is obviously I think Allison is
Yeah.
good.
Yeah.
However, her interactions with her friends and things like that, it
That
just
school
feels
dance.
so like one note. And that school
that
dance.
school dance,
yeah.
like
I will-
have these people never been to a high school dance?
I was gonna
'Cause
say,
that's
I
not
will
what it's
say,
like.
watching that high school dance scene, I was like, I wrote it. I was like, most unrealistic high school dance I've ever seen. I was like, no one ever does that. But I don't know. I kind of liked some of the. Obviously, I do think that they were very tropey, and obviously, like, especially nowadays, like how they were kind of painted. I'm like, okay, well, first of all, I don't remember smoking doobs on the middle of the sidewalk, like, and blowing up pumpkins and things like that.
See, I feel
don't-
like they tried really hard to make their dynamic similar to John Carpenter's first one.
Yeah.
I agree.
With like their teenager, like their friend group.
Yeah.
It felt very reminiscent and it felt unnatural. Where I was just like, this. I agree. I didn't.
That's fair. Do you think it adds to like the feeling of the movie? Like
I think it
Halloween, or do you
actually
think
takes away from it. I look at it as if they had actually made it kind of realistic, it would have been fine. But at the same time, it just felt forced. It felt like this is the normal pretentious friend group from any sort of slasher, horror, thriller movie ever. And these people didn't go to high school and clearly didn't have any friends, and it shows.
And that's my
Sorry.
that's my thing with like big parts of movies. If like majority of the movie I really like, and then some parts kind of miss. Usually I can kind of think in my head, well, why don't you just fill it with this? You know? And that was my thing is like all this teenager family stuff that they keep cutting back to. I'm like, why aren't you showing Laurie? You know, why don't you have this from her point of view? The fact that she's like a shut-in now. Show her side of not being able to see her family.
It just
Having that detached reality. I'm just like, you keep cutting back to these teenagers when for me, from the trailer and everything, I was like, Laurie looks freaking awesome.
Yeah, she should be the main focus of this
And
movie.
they don't really they show it, but it just feels almost like kind of backseat almost.
It just shows that Laurie Strode and Michael Myers are not the main characters.
Yeah.
It shows that there are 4 or 5 different main characters, and you're just like, there's a lot of story to follow within each thing. And granted, it comes together at the end.
yeah.
But it's one of those things where it's just like, you want to see Laurie Strode and Michael on screen more than anybody else because it's relating back to their story when they first had their first interaction.
Kind of their dynamic, their connection.
Exactly. It should
shapes
be
the
at
story,
least.
I think.
Yeah.
It should be.
And I just feel like obviously with Halloween kind of first introduced the whole slasher, final girl stuff, the trope and everything of teenagers.
Yeah.
However, if you're returning to that, I don't think you need. I feel like you didn't need that. You know, like why not show the different side? Like grown adults now.
Yeah,
how
especially
are they
if you're
dealing
gonna
with
come
this
like they did
back
within
after
It.
40 years.
Exactly. You know, like I don't know. To me, that
That's
was just
fair.
like it felt like they were like, oh, we should do something like the original. Let's have teenagers. Things
Yeah,
like
you can
that.
definitely tell they were trying to pull back from the original and be like, okay, babysitters,
Yeah,
teenagers, like this
exactly.
happens. But
Yeah.
It just felt like a cop out, essentially. Like where that's what they know, that's what like got their movie famous and all that. And it just felt like they kept relating back to it, and you're just like you said, it'd be cool if it just showed the adults.
Yeah.
At least
homage.
shut up.
But no, there was this. I will say there's a scene with the kids when they're walking, and then she's like complaining about her mom because her mom obviously like hates Lori because whatever trauma she caused her like from preparing her or whatever. She's like, oh yeah, I'm pissed at my mom because I told her to call grandma to invite her to this thing and she didn't. And they're like, oh, well, how'd you know? She's like, because I called her myself. And I asked her, I was like, why didn't you do that in the first place? And just like ask
Just
her
invite her.
yourself. Yeah. That was my only thing. I died when I was watching that. But yeah, there's a lot of things in this movie where I'm kind of like, why didn't you just do that?
Yeah.
Dude, when we get to that dance scene, I got some shit to say.
that's an
actually.
interesting.
But overall, to me, it was just like the teenager stuff wasn't really working. Some of the stuff with Karen kind of was, but I just feel like, come on, we can.
The dad was
explain
annoying
this
as
a little
fuck.
bit. Yeah, I didn't really care for the dad.
He was a little too campy. I do like from the teenagers. I do like the curly haired friend. What's his name?
the like nerdy
Dustin.
kind of friend.
Yeah, whatever. His
He
name
was
is.
entertaining.
I did like. I
who?
think he was very solid comic relief. The dude that gets.
Oscar?
That's his name.
yeah.
Yeah, I knew to
Oscar?
start with an O.
Oh, I didn't like him at all.
No,
Like,
I didn't.
not
I
at
thought
all.
he was.
I
I
felt
thought he
like
was very solid comic
so-
relief. For
nah.
sure.
He felt way more natural than the freaking
Yeah,
boyfriend.
he sounded.
The boyfriend
his
was stupid as fuck.
Yeah,
He
sucked.
fumbled so bad.
But I will say his dialogue was probably the most realistic teenager dialogue I've heard of that movie.
He just gave me a really weird vibe. Like,
supposed to.
okay, go ahead, Nabaahi.
All right. So, anyways, they get into the whole dinner scene, and this is when I feel like, okay, we're seeing what Jamie Lee Curtis brings to the table. You
Yeah.
see the emotion behind it. She went to go see Michael. She knows she's being transferred. He's being transferred, and it's almost like that past is just like, I can't leave this up to interpretation. I have to go and make sure everything is fine. And it shows the point of trauma to where, again, kind of like Ripley is just like, I'm past the point of being scared now. I want to make sure this thing's done.
Yeah, it never happens
But
again.
Yeah.
I feel like they contradict that later on in the film.
They do a little bit.
So it's not that she wants to make sure he goes.
Yeah.
I instantly, when I saw the scene after that, like where they contradicted, I was like, all right, you were sitting there for nothing. Like,
Yeah.
Well,
this is
isn't that
stupid.
why she's there though? Because her whole thing is that she's like, I want him to escape so I can kill him.
Well, no, she tells the reporters that she knows when the bus is leaving at exactly what time, and she wants to make sure that it gets where it needs to go.
Yeah.
She
And
doesn't
that he's
say
locked
that
up
she wants him to
forever.
get out.
Well, she's not gonna say that.
But
to
again,
him.
I think
Why wouldn't she say that though? She says it to everybody else in the movie.
I think
fair.
when she
That is
gets there, it's like again, you see it in the dinner scene, the trauma of everything was too much for her.
Yeah.
Like her seeing that, she has that scene in the truck where she like screams, she starts crying and everything. You could
love
just
that scene,
tell
by the
like,
way.
okay. And that's the thing, that scene, I was like, that's what I wanted more of. I
Yeah.
wanted to see more of the trauma and everything. Her going to the dinner scene, she grabs a glass of wine, starts chugging
She
it.
took that shot pretty fast, dude.
So it's funny. Like Karen, she said something. She's like, "This is exactly why we don't reach out." I'm like, you suck. I'm like, you're an
Yeah,
asshole.
your mom's like going through it, bro.
Dude,
Like,
yeah, and you're over
if you
here
were
just-
in her position and like some shit happened, like you'd probably should be a little bit more understanding.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
her friends died in front of her. She got attacked. This dude's just fucking with her.
Yeah.
Like, come on.
Yeah.
But anyways, she acts the hell out of that scene. At least I think so.
She did great. Yeah, I agree.
But I wanted more. I wanted to see more. And all the scenes that really felt like I was getting there, it cuts and then it goes to something else. I don't know. That's just that was my whole interpretation with the first kind of 20, 30 minutes. I was just like, all right, like it's working, but the trailer really sold me on Lori and Michael.
Exactly. And that's why I had a hard time with it, because there were so many different main characters, so many different stories that I felt like, granted, they could work. I just don't feel like it was necessary. Because like you're talking about the trailer, like you're sold on Lori, you're sold on Michael. You're like, wow, this should be about them. And overall, it's not.
Yeah.
It's not.
Also at the dinner scene, I feel like there should have been a little bit more interaction. Obviously, we can tell that Lori and Allison have like a connection a little bit.
Yeah.
However, why don't we have a couple more scenes with that? Because I feel like towards the end of the movie, there's some choices that happens where I'm like, if I was writing this, I would have done it maybe a little differently.
Yeah.
But we'll get into that. Okay, now we arrive at the bus scene. Michael ends up escaping. They don't show how, which I think great.
Dude, really cool.
It's I like it better that way. However, with David Gordon Green, his interpretation of things, introductions to side characters just feel kind of unnatural, and I could tell they're trying to make this work in some way of making me care. However, it just doesn't flow that well. We're introduced to like this dad and this son
dance
in
kid?
like a truck.
I want to focus on dancing.
And it just
I
doesn't
like cutting it
feel
all, but-
it doesn't feel like genuine, and I'm just like, it just felt random, you know? And it's just like, why explain that?
So I think
Just have a guy in a truck pull up and him getting out and finding everything.
I think it's because like around that time, like things are a little bit more accepted, you know, like opinions start changing. Like I think they had to kind of include something to show that it's progressive as well, which is fine. You know, I actually didn't mind that scene. I thought it was a little bit funny, like the kid and the dad interaction.
I had a different kind of take on that. I thought it was a way to show that like the ante's been upped. Like he kills that kid.
That's
like
true.
that kid is like 10. He
Which-
like, kills him.
Brings up another point further in the movie where I was
Yeah.
just like,
They do a good job
this
in that
gonna
part
happen?
too.
Yeah, I know,
Dude, they
yeah.
really psych you out there.
but I liked it. I didn't mind their interaction. I believed the kid that he was a kid.
Yeah.
All right. That he.
I'll say that. Yeah.
And-
Like, it felt, I didn't think the acting was bad or anything, but I just felt like when it's introduced and how quickly it's resolved, it's just like, it felt a little random as to, wait, why'd that need to be there?
Yeah.
you know?
Okay, I get
Do
what
you-
you're saying.
Do you guys know how the bus crashed?
So that's what I want to ask. That's what I want to ask.
Do you know how?
I do know how
Oh,
actually.
okay.
Do we
Perfect.
think that the doctor like
Yeah.
set him free? He did.
That's 100% what
That
happened.
was
yeah.
what I was wanting to ask.
He actually, and it's revealed, and I think either kills or ends. Sartain did crash the bus in order so that
knew
Michael could get out. Yeah,
Dang.
so.
I knew it. I had a feeling because of how weird he is with like the podcasters that was something that was going to happen because
Okay, the bus scene happens. Family, you know, the son ends up dying, which to me, damn, like Nate says, kind of ups the ante a little bit.
did they show his death?
Yeah, it shows
kid?
him choking him and
Yeah.
like slamming him into the driver's seat.
Oh yeah,
and
you're right.
everything.
Yeah, you're right.
Which was crazy. So yeah, it shows that the ante's being upped. I like scenes like that where you kind of arrive on like basically like a crime scene pretty much, and you're kind of like trying to find out what happened.
Yeah.
Having the cop like grab the kid's leg, saying like run and everything, I thought was
Yeah.
really great. And then the doctor in the bus was just, you know, he gets shot. I kind of laughed at that.
Yeah.
Don't shoot! Just shoots him, and then the kid just runs. I thought they were gonna do a little throwback, which is one of my favorites in the first one, is getting in the car and having the steam of the breath
Oh,
like,
yeah.
fog up the windows. That was such a great reveal in the first one. Then we get to the gas station scene.
Yeah.
To me, this is when things start picking up. This is, for me, what I like when I say I like the cinematography of this movie. Like the original, there's a lot of hidden shots and things where
Yeah.
it's
there's
more
a
background and
there's
foreground.
a lot of background
and I love
stuff
that.
happens in this movie,
Like
yeah.
you see them at the gas station, and I didn't notice this until like the second time I saw it. You see Michael drive up, and he's
Yeah.
sitting in the seat. You see him walking in the background. You see him wearing that all white outfit, and I just love stuff. I like, again, it shows like the hidden killer side of,
Well,
they're kind of, he's just out in public,
not
and-
only that, but he's watching them at the cemetery.
yeah, that's
they're
scene
looking
too.
at Judith Myers.
I love that
That was
callback to
great.
Judith Myers.
It's eerie. You're like looking at him and you're like, oh.
And it's just a quick shot too. It's like a second, and if
Yeah.
if you don't see it, like you miss out on it.
Yeah.
You know. But that plays into the whole killer aspect too, of just like they hide in plain sight. You don't know like what people's intentions are and
Exactly.
things.
Plus, I think that James Jude Courtney does such a good job of playing Michael in the sense like his movements are so methodical,
Yeah.
and like very slow paced, but very like eerie. You watch it. I mean,
Exactly.
even if you're paying attention in the background when like he pulls up, you see like just a slow head turn, and he does a lot of that physical body acting in that in the movie
Yeah.
that I think just works so well.
It alludes to a lot of violence. One of the things I liked, showing that mechanic and his jaws just like
Oh,
busted
yeah.
open.
Dude,
I was
When
gonna
I
say-
saw that, I was like, "Oh shit!"
Also, homie saw like looks at him. Granted, he can't see his jaw split open. But if you see somebody kind of face down on a desk when they should be awake, you should probably
I know.
do something and or get out of there.
Yeah.
Seeing him drop the teeth, I was not
Oh,
expecting.
That
was
whole bathroom
great.
scene does such a
Oh,
good job
yeah.
of being very like tense.
They
Yep.
usually don't do, at least what I've seen in like the previous movies, the ones that I have seen, they don't really do confined spaces. It's usually like in a house setting or outside where they have somewhere to go. But that girl really had nowhere to go.
That was great.
Like
And seeing her
yeah.
point of view, like she's in the stall, him standing there,
these
peering
big old
through.
thuds, dude.
Yeah,
Dude, he got those giant
Homie's
ass
heavy.
boots. Yeah, he's huge. Like
that was great. Overall, I think that gas station scene for me really worked and really just kind of brought it to the modern day of showing the violence of everything that happened. Basically, Michael massacres these people, However, there were some parts where I was like he grabs the journalist guy and he's like slamming his head and stuff. I was
that
like,
part was
eh.
unrealistic. I
Yeah.
felt like if it was anybody, they would not be conscious and or watching like him. Like if he got
Exactly.
his head slammed as many times by Michael Myers, he would be dead in a second.
that's true. Keep in mind, the dude tanked a hit to the head with a crowbar immediately.
See, what I like though about that scene, and they showed it in the first one, like with the knife sticking, the dude
Yeah.
like hanging up on the wall with the knife. I like how they show Michael Myers' strength.
Yeah.
Because this girl, probably weighs like 120, 130. And he stiff arms her up and is just lifting her up before he like breaks her neck with one hand, which is one of those things where you're just like, oh my gosh, that's actually terrifying.
Crazy.
Yeah.
And then for me, great cinematography again. Him getting the mask.
Oh, that
Oh,
red
yeah,
mask
from the
scene
trunk.
is
and,
beautiful.
and
Even
just
the score.
the piano.
Oh, yeah.
Yes. Oh,
The
God.
way it's shot, he puts it on, slow mo stuff. Well, granted, it's not like too slow mo, but
Yeah.
then when he puts it on, seeing like the shadows in his eyes,
Yeah.
the way
Oh,
it was
yeah.
lit was just perfect.
I think it does a good job of painting the only emotion you'll ever see from Michael. Too.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
you can see he like sees the mask and feels it too.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And like
He's
when
got a connection with
exactly
it.
when
Yeah.
he's putting it back on, you can tell it's like he's back.
Yeah.
Like, he's like, you know what I mean? Like it just I don't know. Like,
Which I've always appreciated the Halloween stuff. And I know this is
Yeah.
very apparent, but like he's masked. Like nobody's going to think that he's going to do anything, you know?
Exactly.
And I've always appreciated that because that stuff could happen and it's on Halloween and you're not going to know.
That's
You're
my
not gonna
biggest
know
thing
what it
about
is.
this movie too. Is I think the gore is so good, but
yeah.
like it's like it looks perfect because it's somewhat subtle. Like the dad when he's at the bus scene, like his neck is so cracked, like you can see it, but like it's stuff that's somewhat plausible. I feel like
Yeah.
yeah, his neck is broken. And if
Exactly.
you push someone's head into a desk and break all their teeth out, yeah, they're gonna look like that. Like
That was crazy. Lori, basically, after this scene, Lori going to his daughter's house, she finds out that the bus never made it.
Yeah.
So she's kind of taking matters into her own hands. I feel like this scene was kind of a miss. I feel like you could have shown a lot more of Laurie being ahead of the game, you know? Like they kind of show it when her daughter shows up and Laurie's already in the house, points the gun at her, like you'd be dead right now, this and this. I feel like they could have done it in a better way.
Yeah.
One thing that I would have liked is like someone showing up to the house, yet it's like pretty much like thwarted by Laurie because she's watching, you know?
Yeah.
I see.
Showing that she is very aware of her surroundings and everything. Her kind of sneaking into her daughter's house doesn't allude to much other than, oh, maybe she found a spare key. But there's so much stuff that you could have done more to show that, nope, like Laurie's just not good at shooting and built a house of traps. She is very, very aware of her surroundings and everything. And I feel like that would do a better job of raising the tension between seeing these two confront, you know?
Yeah.
That's what I wanted more, a little bit more of.
I agree.
And obviously the dad comes in, is played for humor and stuff like
hate
that.
that dude.
I was just like, this scene's kind of a miss.
It's my house. Give me the gun.
Shut up. Shut up.
So I don't know. I felt like it could have done a little more. Because overall, I think the first half obviously shows Laurie's prepared, but it's not much outside of her own surroundings and environment. And I just feel like you could have played so much more into the smartness of who she is, you know? And then we cut to me, just amazing stuff. Michael walking around on Halloween. People are trick-or-treating. I love that. I love just the idea of that. It's just, to me, it's like, yep, he's wearing a mask like
Those
everyone
kids
else.
bump into him and you're like,
doesn't stand out.
Oh man,
That
that's
was
probably
so cool.
that's probably one of the best scenes in that movie, I think. And
Yeah.
God, that continuous shot that continues, like the whole scene is one long shot, which obviously is really cool, especially because in the first one, that whole opening scene, you know, that whole long shot that follows Michael. But God, like you see so much stuff because obviously, like it starts very classically with that sting, you know, that where it comes in.
Yeah,
and,
that's so
like,
good.
God, and you see, and it goes back to his, you know, the acting that James does for Michael Myers, where he's very just like, he has a place to be and go, and he's gonna kill anyone who gets in his way.
And it's terrifying. It's like you're in the point of view of a killer, and it's just like you see him looking around. It's just like, well, what is he thinking? You know, like he bumps into these kids, he doesn't kill him, and then he goes to the back of the house, goes to the shed,
which
you
was
see him-
such a cool shot.
God, that shot
Seeing
where
him
it's
walk
grabbing the hammer.
past the window, you see his shadow leading first, and
Yeah,
you're like,
yeah.
oh, this girl's screwed.
Yeah.
This girl's screwed. She goes to get that hammer. That scene, that was so cool.
I love how he
Great.
like he's so dexterous. He literally like he kills her with the hammer, and then he just like drops it, then
sees
grabs
a
the kitchen knife.
Yeah,
Which-
and then I think this is what Dylan was kind of saying earlier. It alludes to a lot more. You see him kill that person randomly, and it's just like, oh shit, he has the knife now. He's walking out of the house. And then you see the baby.
Yeah, you hear the
cry,
baby crying. Yeah.
and it's just like you see him turn to it, and it's like, what am I? Oh my! It's something about to happen.
is he gonna do this?
What a great fake out.
I feel like it was really well done because it gets your heart pumping. You're
Yeah.
just like, wait, like usually like you don't really see him kill kids too much. Like you don't really see it besides
Yeah.
like teenagers. But seeing him walk up and he's staring at that baby for a second, holding the knife, and you're just like, are they gonna show this? And seeing him walk away, you're just like, okay, like
Yeah,
they weren't gonna take it to that level.
but then it puts in your head of just like,
Is he human?
I really don't understand him, you know? And that's what I like is just like who is he out to get?
Yeah, where are
How
his
does
limits?
his mind work?
Yeah.
Exactly. It's just it really leaves you in the point of view of like when you hear stories on the news and things of just like you really don't know. Like you can kind of piece together stuff, but at the end of the day, why someone does what they do is pretty much only known to them. But yeah, the shots in it are great, the music's great, and then for me, yeah, like Dylan said, him walking around the house, you see the shadow, you see
Yeah.
the mom go up to the window, close the curtains, and
He's
and then
behind her. He's like right
just
there.
grabs her by the hair, and you just see the knife just fully into the throat, blood hits the window, and then just pulls it out. Like to me, that was, all that was great. I was just I liked it.
The fact that she didn't like scream, because she didn't have time, which part was like crazy to me. I was like, oh, wow, it was fast.
Really liked it. Again, you don't know who he's gonna kill, and the best part, he's in plain sight. Like
Yeah.
he's just
Which I
walking around.
love about those movies. Man.
Yeah.
It's such a cool concept.
And then we get back. Unnecessary teenage drama. They're at the dance. This is the
Dude.
Halloween dance.
Unrealistic high school Halloween party. Like literally.
It's just, it looks weird. Like it's shot weird. It's
Yeah.
like a club rave. And
Yeah.
then you see, again, like the writing in it is not great. And the only reason I'd say this is because the whole point of this scene is to get Allison alone.
Yeah.
That's all it's for.
Yeah.
So then you create, well, okay, she's with her boyfriend. So how do we get her alone? Let's make it have drama between him and this other girl.
Yeah.
And then she sees it at the right time. And then already it's just like, this is too convenient, you know? And then the boyfriend starts acting in such a douchey way. Like he grabs her
literally-
phone,
What kid has
throws it in the pudding. And I'm like, that's only so she doesn't have her phone.
She does do some really good acting though. I forget the actress's name, but for Allison, she's all, "What the fuck?" Yeah, what the fuck? Like so
See, I
good.
feel like that part specifically, again, the whole dance scene is just really unrealistic and
Yeah.
stupid. The guy's obviously a douche, but what I didn't like is I didn't have a relationship with these people to begin with.
Exactly.
So I didn't really care about that scene happening. I didn't really care about them fighting. I didn't give a fuck. I didn't care.
Really though, it's just
And-
like, get back to Michael. We
Like
just
you're
saw
saying,
him.
We're here
they're
for
just
this.
setting up for them to have no contact with
Yeah.
her, which is setting up for her to be in a position of where she's probably maybe gonna get hurt.
And that's all it is.
And
is
it's
just-
a stupid
plot
stupid
convenience.
setup.
Yeah.
Stupid. I hated that scene.
it's literally, okay, writer's writing. How do we get Allison alone? How do we make sure she doesn't have a phone? You know, and it's
and
just
they
like
could have done it with like him chasing her or something, and she
Something.
like drops her phone and couldn't get to it.
something.
Like
Michael Myers crashes the Halloween party. It's all just there.
so stupid.
that
dude.
could have maybe been interesting, but I don't know. I just, every time they come back to the teenagers and stuff, I'm like, please, like, why aren't we showing more of Lori? Like, why?
They're definitely
you know?
they're definitely the weakest part of this film. for
Yeah.
sure.
And I think before that, I might have jumped it a little bit. Lori, it kind of shows more of the cop angle and stuff, which
Yeah.
I don't mind, but I didn't like the convenience of the main cop was there the night 40
Yeah.
years ago. Like, I would have rather had
He's
a
not even
younger
es-
cop.
Yeah, he's
have,
not even
like,
established, like an established character. Like,
I
he's not
know
even
he wasn't
after
even
it.
in the original.
Exactly,
like,
yeah.
They just had to make it again another main character like point of view.
Yeah.
Which was stupid. And I hated the part where so stupid. The stupid doctor's all there too. He's like, look who finally woke up. And he's all talking to all these people like outside on the street. And he's like, go back inside. I'm a doctor. And you're like,
Yeah, he does do
that
that, yeah.
doesn't mean shit to me. Shut your little ass up, dude. Shut up.
And again, some of the writing just kind of fails this movie. Like Lori just straight up saying you're the new Loomis to the guy. I was just like,
Yeah.
And obviously, hang
come
on.
on.
His immediate this would have I would have put the dude in handcuffs and like taken him somewhere else. Okay. Him being like, Laurie Strode, I've read all about you. I've been studying you. Like his interest in her and Michael instantly as a cop, I'd be like, you should not be involved in this right now. Like, granted, you have some knowledge, but his interest would be concerning to me.
Yeah.
Where I'm like,
It breaks the illusion a little bit. It's like, okay, why would cops be having a ride along with this doctor?
Yeah.
Like at some point, his safety becomes an issue, and you need
Exactly.
to put him somewhere. You
Yeah.
know, like have him. I don't know, and that's where it breaks the illusion of just like, come on, like this would never happen. Cops
Yeah.
would not be riding along with a killer on Halloween night massacring everyone, and oh yeah, let's just take this guy and we'll keep him in the truck and yeah, just drive around with him. Like I don't know, I didn't like that.
it was just a setup again for what was happening.
Yeah.
And showing, is this dude a friend or a foe?
It's just
and
plot
clearly
convenience.
with his interests in Laurie Strode and Michael Myers, he's a foe.
Yeah.
Like I don't know. I felt like it was super unnecessary, and I don't think he did that good of a job.
He didn't
Like, at all.
And granted, like obviously a big part of the original Halloweens and the only great thing past the first two is Donald Pleasance as Dr. Loomis.
Oh, yeah.
He's so great. However, I didn't feel like you needed to fulfill that role. I didn't need
Yeah.
another Loomis. Like I would have just rather had Michael been in the modern day, and these doctors around him basically don't know how to.
Exactly. Because I feel like Donald Pleasance says Loomis does such a good job of painting like this well-respected doctor and like very knowledgeable person is literally sitting here and saying, kill him.
Exactly.
Pure
He needs
evil.
to
He
be
needs to die.
Yeah.
exterminated.
Exactly. So
Yeah.
to bring on just some random other dude to have him be just another guy to study him, I think was such a weird
Just a
decision.
miss.
Like, yeah,
There
just
was nothing
even in the
else
story.
to study.
Yeah, and
you
I
know?
think at that point, yeah, I'll agree. I think it was just a like cash grab casting of being like, we
Exactly.
need another crazy doctor.
Yeah.
You know?
And it's
But like the flip version.
It's like the Star Wars movies bringing back stupid fucking Palpatine.
oh yeah.
They didn't need to do that.
But I don't know. It's just for me the whole doctor side angle for me was just a big miss.
Yeah.
And it just draws away. It's like, well, if you're gonna use screen time for all this, you really need to justify why you're not showing Laurie and Michael. Because again,
Yeah.
you say Halloween, you're bringing Jamie Lee Curtis back. Obviously, that's what most people are gonna want to see. You know.
Exactly.
So anyways, past that, they leave the dance, Allison leaves, and then that friend, Oscar, ends up tagging along. Their interaction, I feel like, is a lot more natural.
Yeah.
And it feels better, but I'm also just like, it's too late at this point.
don't really care.
I really don't
Yeah.
care.
That's kind of creepy.
Like you don't need to set up another like storyline again.
Exactly. So basically, he kind of oversteps the line with her and is like,
Which was super weird,
tries
by
to
the
put the
way.
move on her or whatever. Immediately after she broke up with her boyfriend.
yeah, which is like
So already I'm just like, great, now I don't care about this guy. But then they set up this cool like automatic lights thing
I love
of
that
Michael
scene.
Oh, yeah.
like triggering him. I like that. No music in it, and it really just shows the eeriness of it.
Yeah.
Like you
His-
see him standing behind the tree. Oscar knows he's there, and he's too drunk to know like who is this guy.
yeah, he's talking to him. He's
He
literally
thinks
just
it's the person like
The
in
house.
their backyard.
Yeah.
like, it was kind of cool. It
And
was,
it's Halloween, so how is he gonna know?
yeah, it was
Yeah.
some cool dialogue where he was like, obviously it was a little campy where he's like, you ever just really wanted a girl and you just can't have her? And I'm like, okay, we get it. Like, yeah, like we know that's the whole thing, but I did like his dialogue there.
Yeah.
But that whole scene was so cool. He
Yeah.
definitely, in my opinion, had the coolest and like most visual death
Yeah.
in the whole movie.
And then
Oh,
showing like the automatic
yeah.
lights, like boom, turns off, Michael moves, turns back on, he's closer to him. I like stuff like that. It's very creative and it feels like, oh, that's kind of scary, you know? And again, like brings it kind of to the modern day. And then it sets up Oscar, pretty much Michael just immediately just slashes him. Oscar tries to run for the fence. He gets stuck on it. And then Allison hears his screaming. So then she goes back and we get the shot of her seeing Michael, obviously generations down, realizing, fuck, this is the whole time what my grandma and my grandma was driven insane about. Holy shit, you know? And they made some fire freaking music.
Yeah,
in
they
the
did.
theater.
The Shape
They
Hunts
really
Allison
did.
is
They
probably
were killing
the
it
best
in the
song in that
studio.
whole thing. God damn.
really did.
And that's literally such a testament to John Carpenter because you literally hear it and you're like, wow, man, oh my god.
Like, I'm not even lying. Like, the moment I heard that song, like when I left the theater, I was like, I need to hear that song again. Like, there were chills on my arms. I don't know. It was a cool way of like, you have the original song, so iconic, you know, how do we do something different and bring it into the modern day, yet make it sound kind of retro with the synths and everything.
Yeah.
The piano.
Yeah.
I literally just wrote here, this Shape Hunts Allison, and I just put a bunch of fire emojis.
Dude, we tried to put Shape Hunts Allison best song and soundtrack. So good.
So great.
The that, you know, obviously the
Yeah.
they made that by running a like a bow for a violin, like a violin bow, across an electric guitar.
That's so
yeah,
sick.
just like
That's so
making that
sick.
sound. But
Awesome.
God, it's such a sting, and I love Halloween for those sound effects that they use a lot because
Yeah.
they're very like, obviously they're very reminiscent of the '80s, where it was like, "Mwah," like scary, like
Yeah.
Psycho. But
Yeah.
oh man, they did such a good job. Yeah, like you're saying, like bringing back that retro sound and that
And
feeling.
it really just fits alongside all the original music that we love, the motifs and everything. I was just like, damn, that was amazing, you know? However, I did want a little more of it. That scene's very quick.
Yeah, that sounds like a
but it
minute.
really lends into the scariness. You see her running, yelling
Yeah.
for help and everything. You don't know where Michael is because the last time you saw him was at that fence. and Oscar's just like impaled on it.
Which was cool. I really like the fact that he just stabbed him in the back, but he like slid onto the thing, and you're just like, holy shit.
Crazy.
Holy shit. That was such a cool part. It was a cool death.
It really was. But yeah, the music just absolutely 10 out of 10. Then we cut to Lori going to the house. She's with the cops. She tells the daughter, Michael is out. We need to
Where's
go
Allison?
right now.
Yeah.
Where's Allison? However, there was a big misstep. And man, they could have really done something cool. Had Karen go with the cops to Lori's house, the safe, basement and everything. Then have Lori go out to find Allison. To me, it felt like a very big misstep that Lori just protects Karen at the house.
Yeah.
And it's like, your granddaughter is out there alone.
Yeah.
Why didn't you or your daughter try to go and find her? Like, to me, I don't know. They really could have sold the fact that Lori feels like she failed Karen raising her, because they allude to it in some dialogue. That I didn't do the greatest job raising you. But then you could have shown that you want to make it right.
Yeah.
And have Lori say to Karen, like, I want to make this better. I'm gonna go out and make sure that your daughter's okay.
Yeah.
I'm gonna not let anything happen. I would have loved that. It would have been great.
See, I see what you're saying. I feel like with that though, it kind of shows that maybe like Karen doesn't have the skills that she used to have as a kid, which again, towards the end, you're just like, oh wow, that was such a cool scene, by the way.
Yeah.
So I feel like it kind of just paints it as she needs her mother's protection.
Yeah.
And like those cops will go get her, like they know where she's gonna be. But I get what you're saying. I feel like one of them, at least her fucking dad, should go look for the daughter.
Yeah, they all stayed there.
all go to the house.
Mom
Dude,
and
that
the
dad is
both
such a
stay there.
bitch, dude. He's such a bitch. She like gives him the gun, and she's like, revolvers, they never jam, and he's all shaking with the gun. I'm like, you pussy.
I don't know. I just felt like, to me, seeing them all in the house, I was just like, come on, like, it's your granddaughter, it's her daughter. Why are you all just waiting and hoping that come on, any parent in that situation would be like, nope, like, I'm gonna go with you. I'm going with the cops. Anything.
I also feel like not only that, but you as Laurie Strode, you know that he's gonna come to you.
Exactly.
Why would you bring the people that you care most about to that place where you know something's gonna happen?
Yeah.
And one of the first people that dies is the dad. So you in a sense put them in harm's way.
Yeah.
Because you are seeking this revenge, you're trying to finish it, and you put your family in harm's way. And I feel like it's selfish, and I feel like they should have maybe taken them somewhere else.
Yeah, no, I agree. And then we get to the sheriff. They end up picking up Lori, the old sheriff, or not Lori, Allison, and of course the doctor's there.
Yeah, why is he still there?
I couldn't tell you. And then the sheriff running over Michael was dumb. Like, to me, I was like, come on.
Take the
Like,
crowbar. hit
the
him
whole
in the head.
time you're looking for Michael, you have cops everywhere, and you just randomly see him walking on the side of the road, and the sheriff's like, yep, I'm gonna run him over.
Dude.
This is it. I'm about to end the story.
I have
And
a
it's just
lot
like,
of problems with that scene.
I hate that. And just showing Michael get run over by a little 4x4. I'm like, come on. Like, we just saw this guy decimate people, and now I'm expected to believe that he's dead because of a car. Like, I was just like, come on. Like,
Not only that, but why didn't the cop pump a couple shots into his face?
Exactly.
Like, he's all stopping because this doctor's just like, he's property of like the state, you can't harm him, and he's like, I'm gonna end this right now. Like, it's so corny and cheesy.
Yeah.
Like, any normal person would start unloading. Would make sure that this person is unrecognizable and never get up again.
really though. And I like, okay, my whole aspect with the doctor, like, I get what he's meant to represent. There are very, very real instances of this in major crime stories and killers and things, that they do have fans, I guess I'll say.
They have a personal interest.
They
Like
have
these-
people who, obsess over that stuff. It's been like that pretty much for the last 50 to 60 years. There's always cases of that. However, it could have been executed a lot better. The doctor is just such a big misstep, and I hate it so much He has a pen knife.
Yeah.
Like,
It,
what
like,
the
flicks
fuck?
out.
He
Well, hold
flicks-
on. What gets me in that scene too is one, he stabs him in the neck with this pen knife, right? Like the cop,
knife.
like this little pen knife, and stabs him in the neck, right? Okay, so we're supposed to be like, oh man, Officer Down, like he just got stabbed in the neck. It's rough. Lives. Okay, stupid. It makes no sense. And then he's like caressing Michael's face for a second there, being like, "Ugh." and like,
It's almost sexual.
dude, yeah, and then like puts his mask on. Stupid.
Dude, when this
I
little
hated
short
that.
ass put on the mask and like
stood in the
Dude,
headlights.
they like he turns to the headlights and is just staring at Allison and you're just like, this is the dumbest thing I've
Yeah.
ever seen. Like
Yep.
this is so stupid. It was
Yeah.
so pretentious.
Even in the end of that scene, like like he throws Michael in the back, and then like starts driving the car. He runs over this cop that got stabbed in the neck, who still lives. Like he just is in the next. Like why? I don't understand. How you gonna like have this grand death scene for this like betrayal? Like
Yeah.
from this person who's
And he's-
apparently there at the beginning.
Yeah.
and now he's fine after that.
I just, Doctor again for me, like I get why he's there and I get what they were trying to do, but it just was not executed in the right way. Like even I hated it. He pulls out the knife and he's all, yeah, and then he stabs him, Palpatine out of nowhere.
Also, this cop couldn't have possibly seen this dude as a threat.
I know,
like, come on.
the
dude.
second he gets out of the car and he's like you said, like caressing Michael, I would have been like, Doctor,
Dude,
you need to step
step
away.
away.
Like
I'm about to
putting
kill
you
him.
in cuffs. Like, fuck that. Like this is too. It's too weird, and you cross the line.
I hate his like outward dialogue with himself where he's just
Yeah.
like, now I know how you feel, Michael. Now I understand. And he's just like,
Exactly.
dude, this is so stupid. And he has to put on the mask and he looks like an idiot.
Yeah. And you could have had like I don't know. You're trying to show which they could have done, but they really didn't. You chose to have an older cop there. Show his way of going about things. An older cop would definitely be like, "What the fuck are you doing?"
He'd be a little bit more wiser. and,
Yeah,
like,
exactly. Like he would have that detachment where it's like, I see this guy as a straight up killer.
yeah.
We've
Now
had
what?
what?
And if you've already-
7 different deaths 2 days.
Yeah, and if you've already
Exactly.
established that this cop knows Michael was there the original night and like knows that,
Then
and,
he
like,
would
and
do
since,
something.
Yeah, and has
Yeah.
since like decided like, yeah, he's evil. I should just kill him.
Yeah.
and like,
And
yeah, and then he's like sitting there taking his sweet ass time. Like,
Yeah.
so stupid. I agree. The moment that doctor got out of the car,
Mm-hmm.
either you're getting back in there or you're just going on the floor with him. Like,
Exactly.
so stupid. man.
So overall, I just think the cops in this movie and the doctor were just a really big misstep.
Yeah.
I get it. You wanted to have a cop who was there the night the original happened. You could have done a lot more with it. You have a doctor who's meant to show kind of that obsessive side that people might have about killers. Could have done a lot better job
Exactly,
with it. It was
yeah.
a miss. But it's pretty short. It's like a minute.
yeah.
Yeah.
And then
It also-
Michael's stomping on his face, which I kind of
Yeah.
liked.
You know what? I wrote this down. I wrote those two cops that it
Yeah.
cuts to that are like, they're outside on the perimeter of
Yeah.
Laurie Strode's
Talking
house.
about PB and J.
That was like the best, like normal dialogue for cops I've ever heard. Because he's like, well, what did you get for lunch? He's like, well, I have a brownie. I made this brownie. I made it myself. It's like, that's like what a 5-year-old would eat if he could pack his own lunch.
And I don't know. I really like how the doctor still just like wants Michael to say something. And Michael just totally just doesn't care.
Yeah.
Like he's known this doctor for a long time and is still just like, boom, stomps on his head. However, that was really crazy that Michael stomps on his face and it's immediately liquefied
Yeah.
into just.
I really like the scene with Michael and Allison in the back of the car.
Yeah.
Because personally, I mean,
That was
that's
scary.
terrifying. You don't know
Yeah.
if homie's gonna wake up, and when she's like talking to the doctor and being like, "Oh yeah, he said something to me. Let me
Yeah.
out, and I'll tell you." And all of a sudden, you look over and like you hear his breathing.
Yep.
The
And
mask
he's
is
sitting.
gone.
Yeah.
He's sitting upright, and you're like, "Oh fuck."
Yeah. That was a good reveal. And it shows Allison's smart, like
Yeah.
her trying to trick this doctor into getting out, very on the spot kind of thinking,
Yeah. Survival instinct.
Yeah. Anyways, cuts to the house. The cop's car pulls up and everything. and the dad goes out to make sure everything's fine. Laurie and Karen are in the house, and then we're kind of in the last final act of the movie. The dad goes to the car, and Michael made a jack-o'-lantern out of one of the cops' heads,
With the
Which was kind of cool.
it was cool.
I like that.
It was the flashlight in his head.
Yeah.
And
That
just
part was a little.
massacred
You're just
in
like,
there.
ah.
Yeah, and then the dad ends up dying. It's just kind of crazy.
Good.
It was just like, I was like, oh shit, he's already died. It's so funny that no one cares. Laurie doesn't care that he
none of them are
dies.
phased.
They never
None
like
of
bring
them.
it up.
The
They just,
wife
like,
didn't give a shit either. Nobody gave a shit.
No one cared.
Even in the second movie, they don't even talk about it.
It's so true. I was just like, damn, he really just walks up behind him, chokes him, and like, that's it. He's gone.
Never to be talked about again.
Yeah. Which was just, to me, I was like, damn, that's kind of crazy.
They write him off kind of quick, which good.
Yeah. And then it shows the final confrontation. Now here we go. Laurie and Michael are crossing. This is the part, you know. This is, to me, where the movie just excels. Laurie's declaration towards her daughter, it works, but it should have happened maybe a little later. And I just feel like her saying, like, I failed you and everything, I was just like, it's hitting, but it's so quick.
What
that I
got
was
me
just
too,
like,
especially,
damn.
was that line where she's like, "I know you thought this was my cage,"
Yeah.
and then it doesn't get brought back up for like another 20 minutes in the end. When then, like the
Exactly.
whole point is like, it's not my cage, it's his. Like,
Exactly.
why are you gonna say that 20 minutes before you do your cool
Yeah.
ending? Like,
See, I have a couple takes with the ending scene. First of all, I think Allison running through the like mannequins and just stops and starts screaming was stupid as
Yeah, it
fuck.
was dumb. It was pointless.
I
I
liked
do agree.
how accurate Laurie going through her house and
Great.
what the term is
Great.
pieing a house, making like going through each section one little piece at a time and making sure that person's not where they are.
Yep.
Finding them.
Closing
She does-
That was
gates.
very
Great.
accurate. That was
Yeah.
really cool to see that she is prepared.
Yeah.
When they're like when she finally encounters him and they start fighting, I have a really hard time because this dude is eating everything that's getting thrown at him.
Yeah.
Right? He got hit by a whole car and he took it, dude. He took it to the chin. He's choking her, and she just like hits him and he lets go. Like, are we
She
joking?
blew his fingers.
She did blow his hand out.
Hang on.
which is,
But that has never mattered. This dude got shot in the first one.
Yeah, that's
got his
true.
eye pulled out, or he got blinded,
Yeah,
and then fell
basically.
from 3 stories and got up and walked away.
Yeah.
He is choking this girl. She like punches him, and then he just like lets go.
Yeah.
What?
I really wish the actual confrontation when it happens could have been done maybe just a little bit better, like you were saying.
Yeah.
It's really hard to believe that you have Laurie now. She's like in her 60s and
Yeah.
she's fighting. But then again, I guess I'm like, Michael's also older. Which was just like my headspace with it. However, her going through the house and everything, great. And then obviously the fight happens. Could have been done a little better. But the great part that I love, Laurie gets thrown off the balcony.
I knew you were gonna say that.
And then it didn't hit me until that point. Michael, it's a shot for shot of the original ending, which I liked. That was a cool little throwback.
Yeah.
But however, what I didn't put together until I saw that is, oh shit, the roles are reversed.
Yeah,
100%.
I did not get.
Yeah.
That's
This
what
is-
they're going for. Laurie was hunting Michael
This
through
whole
that
time.
house. Man, I was like, that was great. And obviously they show that by Laurie falls on the ground, Michael's on the balcony, he looks, hears Allison come through the front door, looks back, Laurie's gone. That was a great way to be like, nope, Laurie is now Michael. Michael is basically the one being hunted. And I was like, okay, now I get it. That's great. That
I
was
love
awesome.
those classic shots that they recreate
Yeah.
because they do another one a little bit later when kind of the climax of the fight kind of reaches.
Yeah.
Laurie kind of materializes in the dark.
Yeah.
Lifts her face and shows and is like, "Happy Halloween, Michael." Like, kind of a campy line, but like it was cool. I love those shot recreations, especially like way back when like the kid he bumps into the kid and that Sting plays, like
Yeah.
very reminiscent of the first one.
yeah.
I love the homages they do throughout this movie.
See, I just really appreciate that whole ending scene, because again, it just shows how she's been waiting for this. She's been preparing for this basically her entire life. This thing has like consumed her. And like you said, the roles change. And just that ending part, dude, is one of the coolest lines I've ever heard. Which we should talk about now.
Yeah. So it gets into the last part. Karen is in the basement with Allison. Allison came in. She immediately goes to that safe zone. Michael hears her down there, and he just starts man-moding this kitchen island and basically like breaks it off.
Rips it up, dudes.
And it was great. Karen's reveal of she was playing him this whole time was awesome. Dude. I was like, all right, I like that.
Hearing her panic, like her freaking out, and she's like aiming down the sights and waiting for him to get to the thing, and then she's just like, gotcha. And you're just like, oh,
she does such a good job of like luring him out, playing the bait, being like, I can't, like I can't.
I bought into it. I was like, oh, she's falling apart. Great, she's not gonna be able to do it. And then just the whole reveal of nope, that was the point. I was like, that was sick.
I do.
I really like that.
And I think it does such a really good job of painting all these women in this family as like really savvy and smart. And
like survivors. They have the instinct.
They all are like very like strong-willed and like very good at what they do. You know?
Their dad clearly did it.
He just sucks.
and like the hinting of obviously having Karen. Obviously, they had said that she learned how to shoot when she was a very young age and everything, but you don't really see it up until that point, and that whole twist to me just really worked.
Yeah.
And then obviously they throw Michael into the basement. They make it out, and then Laurie activates like this part that just like boom, it's like a cage pretty much, and then
realistically he shouldn't be able to get out.
Yeah, and then a fire starts, and they're like Nate said, like this is a trap. Like this whole time that was the point, was to get him down there, and it's blocked off. It was great.
I loved, because again, it just shows how unhuman he is, like, and how he's just staring at them the entire time.
Oh my god,
that
shot of him in the fire where he just looks at them.
Yeah, I love that they're watching him too, and they're also kind of unfazed, but he has no emotion whatsoever.
They paint him so well as being this force. Like he's not a man. He's a man, obviously, but he is more than that. He's just, like he's pure evil. He's the force.
Yeah.
So like that. And even that whole shot with him in the fire, I love is earlier reference in the film too. Like any shot of that basement scene is always just shown of that entrance area towards down into it, and you can see a lot earlier before any of them have gotten there, Laurie's standing at the top, looking down into this, and you can kind of see she looks down and just realizes.
Oh wow!
And so yeah, it's something that I love calling back to, and you get to see. But yeah, that whole shot of the house is getting engulfed in flames because it's a trap to kind of burn him down with it. But yeah, him just looking and staring at them.
Yeah.
And then even when they escape, like obviously it's intercutting with them leaving the house, finding someone that's gonna help them and all that stuff. But it cuts back to that house, and he's gone. Like he's not in that room anymore.
That's
which
true.
I love. The mystical
terrifying.
part. Yeah, the mystical, like the larger than life part of Michael Myers, where he's just unstoppable.
Yeah.
On all fronts.
They should have left it at that.
I agree. I actually do agree. I wrote that. I think that this movie should have been Halloween 2 and just called it.
Yeah. I agree. And the end obviously ends. I stayed through the credits, and you hear Michael's breathing at the end.
Yeah.
Which I was like, okay, they were gonna do more, and I wasn't opposed to it. But yeah, I guess overall, really, I like this movie. However, upon multiple rewatches, there's a lot of stuff that I would change.
Yeah.
But however, in terms of everything, in terms of reboots and things in general, I feel like this hits a lot more than most of other stuff I've seen.
100%.
And I feel like the things it does great. The music is one of them. Cinematography, I love. Having Laurie come back, great performance. And I thought a lot of the actresses in the movie do great. Obviously, Karen and Allison, I felt like were really good. So overall, I just really enjoyed this movie. I think a lot more than other people. I guess score-wise, I'd probably give it like a 7 out of 10. I think it's really good, but obviously there are problems with the movie as well. Dylan, what are you thinking score-wise?
I'd give it a 5.
Average.
I think that there are a lot of cool parts that give respect to like the first one, but they're not enough to redeem every bad part that has happened in it.
Yeah.
I feel like every scene that you get, besides like a very small amount. Like every scene that you get is countered instantly with something not good, and you're just like, this can't redeem the whole movie.
Yeah.
Like, so I'm giving it a 5 out of 10, and I'm pretty solid in that, especially on rewatch, because I hadn't seen it again until it recently, like before it came out, and on rewatch I was just like, nah, like this is not. There's cool parts, but it's not enough. It's not
That
enough
makes
for it.
sense. Nate, what are you thinking score wise? Halloween fan.
Me personally, yeah, I will say I do have a little bit of bias there, but I still think I'd give it a solid 8, honestly.
Oh, nice.
I think it averages out at a nice 8. God, the score is so fantastic. I love that they brought John Carpenter back. Him working with his son Cody, like they obviously did such a great job on that soundtrack.
Really did.
Even just rewatching it, I kind of took it more so as a love letter to Halloween as a franchise and to the fans. Definitely a really good way to end out the franchise. I wish with just this movie would have been absolutely perfect. I think. I do think that there are some really major problems that we kind of talked about that do take away from it a lot. Things that definitely could have been better written, characters that could have definitely had a little bit more impact in the story. But
Yeah.
overall, I do really think that it's a solid a solid reboot. I think it was solid. It was such a great way to pay homage to the original and like all of its its cast and its members and the continuity that I already set up in that first one and so many subtle references you hear throughout the movie. Like the boyfriend's dad, his name is Lonnie. He's a character that's in the first one. He got yelled at by Donald Pleasance to get his ass out of there. Like it's these small callbacks and things that I really love to see in that. And I guess that's kind of what elevates it for me is just comparing it and like seeing all the similarities to the first one, which obviously is its own its own double-edged sword because it's like, well, it's just kind of like the first one but new. But I don't know. I thought it did a really good job of doing that.
And that's my thing with the franchise in general is just like, it's not as simple as I think people think it is. Like you don't just put Michael on screen and it just works.
Yeah.
I mean, the franchise is very much evident to the fact that you can have Michael and it doesn't work, So I feel like because Michael actually felt scary in this movie and he felt intimidating, I was like, work went behind that. They had to pull this off, and I just don't want to outright dismiss that and just be like, they just brought it back, and of course you bring it back an old franchise, it works. It's like, nope, they've done this franchise for many years, and over half of it doesn't work for me. The fact that this movie works, I think, to me is worth noting. Now, Nate, I understand you have to leave soon, so I'll probably only stick to one question that I feel like for me is the most important question that comes into terms with this movie, and not to mention other franchises in general. I think it's a great question. Can a sequel affect your enjoyment of a previous installment? This has happened to me before, and I noticed it a lot while watching this movie, but obviously another one that comes to mind is Star Wars. I really like the first one, and I'm on board, and then everyone that follows it really just doesn't work. And
You like The Force Awakens?
I really liked The
like
Force
The Force
Awakens when it came out.
Okay.
I was like, yes, this is what I love in Star Wars. We are back. Especially, again, like, I love the prequels, but there are obvious flaws with the prequels.
Yeah, of
so
course.
seeing Force Awakens and everything, it really felt like I was watching Star Wars again,
From like a New Hope point of view, or what?
Yeah, from
Okay.
the original trilogy. It really felt like a great continuation of that. But as the rest of them started to come out, especially Rise of Skywalker, now when I watch The Force Awakens, I'm like, this isn't as good, because I know what it leads to.
Exactly.
And that was the one thing I wanted to ask with this movie is because I love this one. Kills, I don't mind it as much as other people. Some people really don't like it. I don't think it's as good as this one. I think it does a lot of stuff really wrong. And
I hate that movie.
and overall, I'm just like, damn, what a tragic misstep.
Yeah.
Just because I love this one so much. And then obviously with Ends, I was like, please, can we just bring it back and maybe make like some resemblance of a trilogy? But then obviously Ends came out and I thought it was even worse than Kills.
Yep.
And then overall, when I'm watching this movie, I'm just thinking like, damn, I know what this leads to. This is almost like not even worth it at this point.
Yeah.
So I guess, Nate, do you agree with that statement? Can a sequel affect your enjoyment of a previous installment that you ended up liking pretty much?
Somewhat. I'll definitely admit, especially watching this first one when it came out, and then like really thinking that it was going to be a wrap up for the series, and finding out that there was going to be more, like finding out Kills was coming out was, I'll admit, I was excited to see it. I kind of wanted to see a little bit of a continuation, I'll admit. But yeah, man, sometimes like you're saying, like with Star Wars, or even in this case, like they really dropped the ball. And even like, I don't know, I guess it's kind of hard. I think it becomes whether you're able to separate the franchise from the film, if that makes sense. So like,
Interesting.
because I look at it as like, especially with a storied franchise like this, it's so hard to try to piece together concise like 3 trilogy or like 3 set film or things like that. Like, because I love Friday the 13th. 6 is my favorite, but I'm not gonna sit here and say 7 or 8 was good.
Yeah.
Or like 4, like, you know what I mean? But I do definitely think that it had a huge impact on how I view this film now.
Exactly.
I still love it. I do think it holds up.
I watched it.
Yeah, like I'll still rewatch
Yeah.
it, but it does take a lot from it, especially the ending too, like where you have such a very clear cut and very, you know, obviously ambiguous for the sense of the character and how he is, but to leave that open, and now knowing that opening that was left led to such a like flop,
Yeah.
is very like it does take away a little bit of that enjoyment.
And then it just kind of like, when you're watching it, you start noticing very big holes in it. Like one I'll mention with Star Wars is there's no real reaction to Luke finding out that Han died, you know?
Yeah.
It's just a very quick one line like, wait, where's Han, you know? And that's it. And I don't ever get that moment where they process that. And kind of the same with this one. The fucking dad, he dies.
Yeah, and no
it's
one talks
Nobody
about
gave
it.
a shit.
Yeah.
Well, even the
it's
continuity
done.
makes no sense. That dude got stabbed in the neck and then ran over, and he's fine. Like, I don't understand.
He got stabbed multiple times.
Dude,
too.
yeah. Like, it wasn't just like, and then like get run over, I guess. But like,
Dylan, do you agree with the statement? Can a sequel affect your enjoyment of a previous installment? And do you have other instances where that's happened before?
I agree with everything that's being said currently. Actually, my scoring going into this movie is because of Kills.
Yeah.
Knowing what's coming after that, after the first one, I feel like they just should have left it alone. Knowing what comes after that was so stupid. They're bringing back Kyle Richards and all that stuff.
Yeah.
It ruins everything. I actually didn't want to watch this movie again because of Kills, and it prevented me watching Ends
Interesting.
because it was so stupid. It was such a stupid movie. There was no redeemable thing about that movie whatsoever.
the fact that they thought that tiny dude, balding dude,
Yeah, it was
fucking Michael
They
Myers.
made him kill himself.
Yeah, and he's like hobbling away
Dude,
too.
he's all-
I'm like,
poor guy.
this was our anyway.
The only thing I'm not defending Kills at all. Like, that's not what it is. The only thing I do like story wise is obviously showing mob mentality. They kind of touch on that in
That's
Halloween
true.
too, and I feel like it would get to that point where it's like a city would just be like so done.
Yeah,
And
especially the small town that they paint Haddonfield to be, for sure.
Exactly. However, execution, Halloween dies tonight, or whatever the fuck they're chanting.
Oh,
Or
man.
evil dies tonight. I'm just like, this
They,
is
like-
so fucking dumb.
They like
quit
jump
saying
him
that.
as like a group, and then he just like solos everybody.
I know.
which I'm
They
like,
have him on the ground, and it's like, what are we doing? Unload on him.
Isn't he like 60 something?
You have guys running around with guns and everything. I don't know. Just again, execution just was terrible.
I feel like what I'm going to talk about with the installments thing is I feel like some sequels can actually make the first one significantly better.
Oh, cool.
So I don't agree with it as a whole. I agree with the Halloween stuff and the Star Wars stuff. But with Dune,
Oh, okay.
Dune 1 and 2. All right. Dune 1 is a little slow going and it's hard to follow. But 2
Yeah.
is phenomenal. I know you didn't like it, which I have a problem with, okay?
We're going to talk about it on the show.
I know you didn't like it, and
definitely.
I have a really big problem with it. I'm getting mad talking. No, I'm not going to lie. But after watching that, I immediately rewatched 1 and then went and saw it in theaters again.
Oh, nice.
It made the first one significantly better. So I feel like I can agree with the Star Wars, with Halloween, and maybe other movies,
Yeah.
but there are instances where sequels actually make the first one 10 times better.
Yeah.
You know, that maybe it was a 7 out of 10, but it bumps it to a 10 because the story that follows, you're like, wow, like
Yeah.
it was all leading to this, which is super cool to me. And I think that's rare that happens.
It is rare. Honestly, like, that's the trick, is like finding a sequel and is this story worth telling, and is
Yeah.
it worth, putting up the effort? And again, like you said, it's rare that, okay, like I like the first one, but now because of the second one, I want to go and see the first one again.
Exactly.
I'll say
And-
another franchise I think that does that well is the newest Spider-Man trilogy.
Oh yeah.
See,
Yeah.
which was risky.
Yeah.
They could have, like, when they brought back all of the, like, Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield, they could have gone about that the wrong way.
Yeah.
And made the other ones look stupid. But they took that risk. And granted, everybody was wanting that. They did it right, which whenever you watch the older movies now, you're just like, wow, like, this is so cool. It's already cool in general, but
Yeah.
it
There's
pays
another level
respect,
of-
and they did it correctly.
Yeah.
That's my thing is like when there's no outright acknowledgement of those bad movies, that's where I'm like, okay, come on. Like one thing I didn't like with Force Awakens and the new sequel trilogy in general, besides the last one, they don't ever really address the prequels at all. It's almost like they didn't want to touch that,
Yeah.
And like with Spider-Man, obviously, Amazing Spider-Man 2 wasn't that great, yet they chose
Sam
to
Raimi's
bring
3.
Yeah, yet they chose to bring back Electro and actually try to improve on
They
him.
did it better. And I like the
Exactly.
way that they did that because it's a different universe. Its
Yeah.
power grid is different.
Yeah.
Like, which was super cool. That was super cool.
And that's the thing. I feel like any other director probably would have just saw that as like a challenge they didn't want to take on. Like, why bring all that baggage that I don't like when I can maybe improve on it? And Electro's one of them. Andrew Garfield's Spider-Man saving MJ is another one.
Yeah.
They have callbacks to that second movie that people genuinely don't like,
Yeah.
Yet they re-lens it. And actually, after watching it, I was like, damn, I actually kind of want to watch Amazing Spider-Man 2.
and it
I-
redeems it.
I never thought I'd say that. Exactly. So yeah, I guess overall, I feel like sequels sometimes they really do affect my enjoyment overall. One of them, of course, is Man of Steel. I love, and then Batman versus Superman and Justice League that follow it. I'm just like, damn, what a misstep! How did you mess this up?
I didn't like Man of Steel.
We'll get into that.
I bet we will. We get into it every time we hang out.
But yeah, I guess we can end it there. I know Nate has to go to work. This is a pretty long episode, but I had a lot of fun.
Yeah, me
me
too.
too.
It was a good time.
Thank you guys for indulging me. I know when I mentioned Halloween 2018, Dylan was like, fuck.
Well, at first when because again, I hadn't like rewatched it
Yeah.
until recently. I texted Nabaahi. I was just like, hey, you might need to get somebody else on the podcast if you want diversity because I actually like it. And then I rewatched it and I was like, no, I actually don't like this movie. I will be on that podcast first thing at 10 a.m.
But this is cool. I feel like this is kind of one of the few instances, as of right now, us having a different opinion on something.
Yeah.
But I feel like we kind of came to like a good understanding.
We need to bring Jonah on and do Weathering with You in your name because I will rip into homie. I will rip into that dude.
I want to make that happen.
No hate. No hate.
Jonah,
No,
you
no
man.
hate at all. But I feel like that'd just be very entertaining to watch.
Yeah.
And watch it play out. So yeah, guys, Wallied was out on this one. So next episode we will be getting into Shaun of the Dead. I do apologize about that, but I just didn't want to go another week without not having an episode. So impromptu, Nate and Dylan, thank you very much for joining me. I appreciate it.
Of course.
And
Thanks
it
for
really
having us.
helps fill in the gap. And maybe we'll talk about Halloween Kills and Ends eventually, or maybe even
We cannot.
Resurrection.
We could not.
Resurrection. Ooh. That'd be interesting to show you like Resurrection.
I'd watch it.
You haven't
I'd watch
seen
it,
it.
yeah.
Oh, man. Yeah, dude,
We could do a marathon and talk about how garbage all of them are. Maybe I'll like them. Maybe we'll have an opposing
Oh,
view.
they-
You guys
that-
hate them, and I love them.
Are
That'll
you
be an
like a
awful take.
horror guy? Do you like?
Me and Nate, he talked about it actually on the Silent Voice episode. Me and Nate, for like when we hit 18 and the pandemic was happening, I go to his house like every day. We'd make burritos, he'd make me a burrito, and we'd just binge watch horror movies. So I love horror movies.
That's awesome.
I love them.
Yeah, we'll have to have you guys on again. But thank you guys so much for tuning in. If you're on Spotify or YouTube, I appreciate everything. And yeah, I guess we'll end it there. I mean, you guys have anything else you want to say?
No, I had a really, really good time. So thank you for having me.
I was right about the Guardians of the
You
Galaxy
weren't.
3 soundtrack. That's
No,
all
you
I'm
weren't.
saying.
No, you weren't.
sign off.
We didn't even get enough time to talk about it. End the episode, Nabaahi.
cut the audio.
End the episode, Nabaahi. End it.
All right, we'll catch you on the next one.
Bye.